7 p.m. and I'd like to welcome you to the May 20th School Committee meeting. This meeting being held virtually through Zoom. The town of Littleton began conducting remote participation Zoom meetings pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law on March 19th, 2020. Since that time, unanticipated legal concerns relating to the open meeting law have been brought to our attention by the town clerk. Those concerns were supported by the Attorney General's office and confirmed by town council. One concern is that the chat function allows a parallel text conversation to a board's public meeting. Chat is essentially running commentary that is occurring, but it is not moderated or followed by the chair. All participants and listeners may not be aware of comments being made because some meeting participants join by phone and do not see these conversations. Another concern is conversations between residents within the chat room, which are not incorporated into the public record. In response to these concerns, the town will implement the following changes, which in no way prohibit any member of the public from participating in discussion and sharing information during a public meeting, and will ensure that all listeners and participants have equal access to this meeting. People that join the Zoom meeting are set so their phones are muted. If you called in by phone, please use the *6 to mute or unmute your phone. So that the meeting can occur in an orderly fashion, we ask that people who join keep their microphones on mute so background noises do not interfere with the meeting. If you wish to participate in the meeting, please use the raise your hand function available on Zoom, or if you called in by phone, dial *9, which will activate the raise your hand function. The meeting host will notify the chairperson of the raised hands, and the chairperson will determine whether and when to allow public comment. When called upon, participants should unmute, then state their name and address. After speaking, we request the participant return their microphone back to mute. Okay. With that being said, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Dr. Clenchey to reorganize the board.
Thank you, Matt. As per statute, the superintendent is responsible for holding an election for chair. Once that decision is made, I'll be turning the meeting over to the new chairman or chairwoman, whoever that may be. So at this point in time, I would like to accept nominations for the position of chair.
I'll nominate Matt Hunt.
Do we have
second?
Do we have a second?
Yes, I'll
Timlin?
second.
Okay. Any other nominations?
I'd just like to say I'm nominating him not only because of that really impassioned reading of the announcement at the beginning. I admire him as a person and a leader too, but that was good. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Brad. Now, as per Robert's rules, I have to say this 3 times, so please bear with me. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? At this time, I would accept a motion to close nominations for the position of chair.
I move we close nominations, position of chair.
Second?
And because we're virtual this evening, I'm going to have to do a roll call vote. So Brad?
Brad Austin votes yes.
Timlin?
Timlin Rossius, yes.
Justin?
Justin McCarthy, yes.
Jen?
And Gold votes yes.
And Matt?
Matt Hunt votes yes.
All right.
Begrudgingly.
No. Okay, so
In terms of the election process, I've closed nominations. Now I would like to take a roll call vote in favor of nominating Mr. Matt Hunt as chairperson of the Littleton School Committee. Roll call vote. I'll start with Brad.
Brad Austin votes yes.
Timlin?
Timlin Rossius, yes.
Justin?
Justin McCarthy, yes.
Jen?
And Gold, yes.
And Matt, you certainly can weigh in if you would like to. If not, that's fine as well.
for Matt Hunt votes accepts, yes.
All right, thank you. Congratulations, Matt. At this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to you. You do not have to be as specific as I did in terms of officially closing nominations with a vote. You can just simply say as chair that I'm closing nominations, and you can proceed to a vote.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to accept nominations for vice chair of the Littleton School Committee. Timlin?
I'd like to make a nomination that Justin McCarthy be vice chair of the school committee this year.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Do we have any other nominations? Okay, I'm going to close the nomination process and we're going to vote on that. So again, this is a roll call vote. So Timlin,
Timlin Rassius, yes.
Jen,
Jen Gold, yes.
Brad,
Brett Austin, yes.
Justin,
Justin McCarthy, yes.
and I vote yes as well. So Justin is now vice chair of the Littleton School Committee. Congratulations on that. I'm now going to open it up for nominations for secretary.
I move to nominate Timlin as secretary.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Does any other nominations before I move on? Hearing none, I'm going to close nominations and move on to a roll call vote. Jen Gold,
Jen Gold says yes.
Justin McCarthy,
Justin McCarthy, yes.
Brad Austin,
Brett Austin, yes.
Timlin Rassius,
Timlin Rassius accepts, yes.
and I vote yes as well. Congratulations, Timlin, on staying secretary. Hopefully you know how to do it this year. Okay, so here comes the fun part. We get to organize the board. We have several school committee appointments for subcommittees. I'm going to go through them and just let me know if you are still interested or want to get involved in this one. The first subcommittee is the Bradford Sampson Scholarship Trust. This committee becomes active during the month of May, usually requires 3 meetings to determine the distribution of available scholarship money to graduating seniors and alumni. The current assignment is Brad Austin. Is Brad still interested in maintaining this liaison, or would someone
No,
else
I'd
like to jump
love
in?
to. We haven't actually met, so I don't know if I'm dropping the ball or if I should just be waiting by my phone.
Just wait by your phone.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it if no one else wants to.
Okay. The second subcommittee is the Permanent School Planning Committee. We don't currently have an appointment for this. It's not necessary, but just so we know, this committee was very active in 1995, 96, 97. Its recommendation for additional school space has been implemented by the town, which is why it's not necessary at this time to appoint anyone. Should that change, we will make an appointment. Okay, evaluation. This assignment involves management of the superintendent's evaluation, including compilation of individual members' ratings and presentation of results. That I am currently assigned to that. I'm happy to keep it if no one else would like to. Seeing none, I will remain on evaluation. Okay, Regionalization Study Committee, currently no assignment necessary for that. The Municipal Building Committee, this is a town committee appointed by selectmen to plan for and oversee construction, reuse of new of town and school buildings. Current assignment, Timlin Rassius. Timlin, you want to stay on this?
Yeah, I'm happy to if no one else wants it.
Anyone else for PMBC? Going once, going twice. Sold to Timlin Rassius. Technology Committee. Okay, updates district's technology plan and makes recommendations for development and implementation of technology program. I'm currently assigned to that. I'm happy to stay, but this is also might be a good one for somebody else if they want to jump in on this.
Matt, I was thinking that would be a good one for me. I have a tech background. I'm happy to take that.
That is great because I do not. So that'd be good. And
I'll do it.
put Jen Gold down in for tech committee. Okay.
Thank you.
Legislation. This assignment involves keeping up to date on pending legislation, working together with the superintendent on keeping the school committee informed of legislative matters and occasionally expressing the committee's opinion on legislative matters to our representatives. Mike Fontanella was the current assignment. As chair, this kind of goes hand in hand, so I'm happy to take this up if no one else wants to jump in. And I don't hear anyone, so I'll take that. All right, policies. This is my favorite. Full committee responsibility. One member will be asked to take an organizational lead for this work. We currently had 2 last year. We can keep it at 2. Timlin and Brad, you both want to stay on policy?
I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Excellent. Oath to bills and payroll requires the ability to stop by central office, usually every Friday morning, to sign school department payroll as official designee representative of the school committee. Current assignment is Mike Fontanella. Kelly, can I ask, do you want this to be the chair? Or does this can this be anyone?
Well, for this particular position, it's important that you have some flexibility to come in and sign on a regular basis. So whoever, has that flexibility, that would certainly make it easier for everybody.
All right. Timlin, you have that flexibility?
Yeah, I have Fridays off.
Perfect.
It does not have to be Friday. We're flexible on the day.
No, I mean, I work Monday through
So,
Thursday, so I
We
am.
like it
Pop in
consistent. Just as
after
far.
I-
Okay.
I mean, I can
Yeah.
also do afternoons. Obviously, I'm a teacher. I mean, you guys are there later, so I just couldn't do Friday mornings. So,
That would be fine, either way.
all right. You want me to just take it, Timlin?
That's fine if you don't
All right,
mind.
I'll do it. It just won't be Friday mornings.
Okay.
Okay. Liaison with town government to serve as school committee contact with town boards. Current assignment, Justin McCarthy. Justin, you want to stay in that role?
I'll continue with that one if that's okay.
Okay. Negotiations. This is something we have been doing a lot of this year. Previously, Mike Fontanella headed it up. I was kind of more of an observer, but this is who works with the school committee's attorney and the superintendent during negotiations with collective bargaining units. For consistency purposes, I would probably want to stay on this, but certainly would like to add one more member of the board. If anyone is interested.
Willing to help out there or would
Okay.
like to help out there if that's okay.
Okay, is everyone else out with Justin? And we'll add Justin to the negotiation team. All right. Representative to Community Services, Parks and Recreation Department, current assignment, Justin McCarthy. I don't know if you want to open that up to someone else, Justin, or if you...
I would be amenable to somebody taking that over.
I would love to take that over, if that's okay with Justin.
Excellent. So we'll put Jen Gold on Park and Rec.
Thanks.
Okay. Budget Subcommittee. This was Justin and myself last year. I'm going to step away from budget. I've been on it for a few years now. I trust Justin to handle it, but I would like one other member to step up and help him out. Do I have someone interested in that?
I can volunteer for that one too. I've got some background with that.
Excellent. So that'll be Justin and Jen Gold working Budget Subcommittee. All right. Safety and Security. Timlin Rossius. I know we all felt safer and more secure with Timlin on the case. Timlin, do you want to stay with this?
Sure. Yes.
Excellent. The CPAC, Brad, I know this is near and dear to your heart. You want to stay in this role?
I'd love to stay with that if it's okay with everyone.
Okay. Master Plan Implementation, current assignment, Mike Fontanella. Well, guess what? There's a new sheriff in town. So I'll take this on if no one else wants to. Everyone's okay with that? And then Reopening Task Force was Brad Austin. So Brad, you gonna stay on the Reopening Task Force?
Yeah, yes. If there's a need for one, I'm happy to do it this summer.
Yeah, I think it's pretty quiet right now, and I don't foresee it being any very active, but we'll keep you listed on there.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Let me go back. So with that, we have filled out the subcommittees. We do have a consent agenda from May 6th, 2021, and oath the bills and payroll. Does anyone have any questions? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes and oath the bills and payroll.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. This is a roll call vote. Timlin Rassius,
Timlin Rassius, yes.
Brad Austin,
Brad Austin, yes.
Justin McCarthy,
Justin McCarthy, yes.
Jen Gold,
Jen Gold, yes.
and I vote yes as well. Okay, this is our first opportunity for interested citizens to chime in. We will be talking about a variety of things tonight, which you'll have the opportunity after each one. But if anyone has any general statements or concerns, feel free to address them now.
I do not see any raised hands, Chairman Hunt.
Okay, and we'll move
Oh,
on.
we do have one. We do
Okay,
have one.
go right ahead.
Okay. Jennifer Klein, please state your name, your street, and your question, please.
Yeah, hi, my name's Jen Klein. I'm wondering when you guys, I live at 2 Dogwood Road. I'm wondering when you guys are going to go back to meeting in person. I feel like it's an important step for us.
We actually were just discussing this, Jennifer, before the meeting tonight. I agree it is an important step. They're working on a few different models, possibly a hybrid model where the school committee would be in person and people could call in. There's also been floated that we might do every other meeting in person and Zoom. We found a lot of great things about the Zoom meeting where we get a lot more attendance than we get from when we were at the police station. But we are working on it, and I do foresee us going back to some form of in-person meetings in the near future. Dr. Clenchey, did you want to weigh in on that at all, or?
Yes, for sure. And thank you, Matt, for saying that. I was thinking about that the other day, and there's merit to having in-person meetings, and as we found out this year, there's also significant merit to having virtual meetings. Our participation rates have been higher. That could be because of COVID, but I also feel that it's much easier for people to tune in from home rather than having to drive to a meeting. So I would certainly be in support of having both meetings as we begin next year. I think for this year, LCTV, unless things have changed, are still working some of the details out. So I would recommend, we only have 2 meetings left till the end of the year, that we finish the year in a virtual manner in terms of meetings and then start fresh next year.
That answer? Oh, Brad?
Yeah, I was just going to say, thanks, Jen, for asking the question. There have been a lot of studies about how these virtual meetings have really increased participation and transparency in local governments across the country. And so I would love for us to be able to keep that going. I know we've all benefited as a town and as a committee with the kind of level of participation we had this year. So as we move forward, whether we're in person or not, I hope we can figure out how to do some of this. So people, I mean, it's even just having it broadcast on cable is fine, but it's not as interactive as the Zoom is. So we'll continue looking for models for how to do this well.
I would just agree with that too, as somebody who clearly benefited from being able to participate in these meetings over the past year myself. I think it's important to keep that public input, that channel open. So I'd love to see some sort of a hybrid solution.
Any other questions, Jennifer?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any other hands, Dorothy?
Do not.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Clenchey for recognitions.
Thank you, Matt. It's hard to believe that tomorrow seems like a few days ago that we invited everybody back to full in-person instruction, but it is that time of year. And as we know, it's been a year like no other that we've had. And to the graduates, we're very proud of you, and you've made it to the finish line. So we're certainly looking forward to seeing you at your graduation and celebrating your accomplishments in the next couple of weeks.
Great. We have a few presentations planned for tonight. We're going to start off with Katrina Hagberg, giving us an update on the state, local, and public health metrics.
Hi, everyone. All right, we're going to do a little epi education to start, and then we're going to go into the good stuff. So I just want to start because I think this helps us see what's happening with the metrics. So I want to start with this concept of community immunity. So that's when a large proportion of a group of people, like a town, school, some other group, become immune to a disease, either through a natural infection or vaccination, which makes spread from person to person unlikely. And this kind of population immunity is the point when a new chain of transmission is hard to get started because there's roadblocks on the way with people who've been vaccinated or if they've had the prior infection. So I think we all looked at our rates the last few weeks and we kept being higher than the people around us. And I think we had a transmission event happening in our town. So at this point, we'll see where we are going forward. But this community immunity concept actually protects everyone, not just those who've developed the antibodies through infection or who have gotten vaccinated. It also protects others that are too young to be vaccinated or who have immunosuppression issues and therefore can't build antibodies. And so that's a really important thing as we talk about a pandemic and something like COVID, is that the more people who have vaccinated or infected, thankfully in our town, it's more vaccinated than infected, the more we will prevent spreading events. And the other thing to keep in mind as we go through this is that vaccinations won't be evenly distributed throughout a population. In this case with COVID, we're talking groups of people who just aren't eligible because there is no vaccine for those age groups specifically. And also people with similar outlooks on life or ways of thinking about things might group together in family units or in friend groups. So there'll be pockets of people who are unvaccinated that are together, but for the most part, the more people who are vaccinated, the more we're protecting everyone. Oops. I'm sorry, I didn't hit present. Okay, so let's go to the state data. We've seen improvements of the state week over week for 6 weeks now, which is amazing. The 7-day average of COVID cases continue to decline. We're now at a level similar to where we were at the end of September. Test positivity is low and right around 1%, depending on which area you look at. Hospitalizations have been on the decline over the last few weeks and are now at a similar level right to where we were before Halloween. And the confirmed COVID deaths remain low and stable at about just under 10 a day. And the awesome thing about being in Massachusetts right now is that 72% of Massachusetts residents age 12 or older have received at least one dose of the vaccine. So when we talk about that community immunity that I just mentioned, we have a state that's a very robust vaccine program. And so that we have a lot of that community immunity built or building as people become fully vaccinated. And we also sit in the middle of a region of the US where it's also high. So we have extra protection by the states around us who are similar. So if we looked at the cases continue to trend lower. And as you can see from this graph on the left, the 7-day rate declined to about 480 cases a day. And then the groups with the age groups here, the age group with the highest rate in the last 2 weeks was those who were aged 10 to 14, and then followed by those aged 15 to 19. But those have all decreased, and I'll show you the trends on the next slide. But the one thing I want to draw your attention to today is the incidence rate per 100,000 for our state for the last 2-week period. This week, it's 8.7 per 100,000. Last week, it was 12.5, so this is a great drop. But this 8.7 is significant because we've dropped below the less than 10 per 100,000, and that's the level that our state has been really aiming for, like hoping to get down to this level because it's a level where suppression starts to happen and new outbreaks get harder to start. So what we hope to see is that this less than 10 rate continues to happen over the next few weeks, that we can keep that trend going. So let's hope that we can keep going that way. So when we look at the trends by age groups, I've split them by vaccinated, eligible for vaccination and not eligible for vaccination yet. The great news is that all the trends continued to decline regardless of age group and whether vaccination status, so that's great. The graph on the right, we're going to focus on all the eligible vaccinations for people eligible for vaccination. This has been on a rapid decline since the beginning of April. And when eligibility really opened up to the more people with occupations and just the 16 plus in the middle of April. So, and if you look at the decline, the 20 to 29-year-olds have been leading the highest rates through the whole thing, and they are just dropping at a rapid rate as in the last few weeks, the 15 to 19s, as they become fully vaccinated, are also seeing the same kind of really steep decline. So this is an awesome sign that shows us that our vaccines are really doing what we hoped they would do in preventing transmission. So if we look on the graph on the left for people 0 to 14, these are the groups that, well, up until recently, were not eligible for vaccine. And this data doesn't capture much of that time when the 12 to 15, I think it's like 3 days, when the 12 to 15 group became eligible. So the ages 5 to 9 and 10 to 14 groups really kind of, they started to flatten a little bit in April. And it was right after schools started opening and spring activities are happening. People are starting to go back to work and the state had reopened more businesses. So there was this period of time when these unvaccinated groups of people were starting to slow. And what we had seen in the past that might have indicated that they would go back up. The great thing is that this week that trend started to decline again. So again, the vaccinations among people who are eligible help to protect people who are not eligible for vaccines. So that community immunity is working right now. So we hope now that the 12 to 15-year-olds are eligible for vaccinations that they will, this top line here will really start to drop rapidly too, just like the 20 to 29 and the 15 to 19s. So when we look locally, over the month of April, we were kind of hovering in the red where all the areas around us were dropping into the yellow and the green. And there was a lot of frustration that we were kind of stuck. And there was a couple, I was talking at the Board of Health meeting last night, and there was a couple larger groups of people who are unvaccinated that happened to have a cluster, basically within a family and then a couple families. So that's kind of why we got stuck there for the month. The good news is that those have come off the books, if you will, and we finally have caught up. So the DPH report today had 11 cases for the 2-week period ending May 15th, which puts us back in the green, which we haven't been in since September. We haven't been in since, end of September. So, and that was actually a 60% drop compared to 2 weeks ago when we were at 30 cases. So this is a great thing to see that we've now had 2 weeks where we've declined, and we hope to continue seeing that in the future. And when we look at the rates, not only in Littleton, but in the areas surrounding us and the county and the state, again, this is the same data through the 15th. All the areas we've been tracking have been declining over week for about 6 weeks now, and Littleton was kind of stuck for a few weeks, but now we've come back down to join everywhere that we've been tracking. So Littleton's rate over the last week was 8.1 per 100,000. Remember in the state, I said it was 8.7, so we're right there, right with the state now. And that's down from 22 per 100,000, which is where we were 2 weeks ago. And so a lot of the infectious disease experts really want, I know the state's aiming for less than 10 per 100,000. The infectious disease experts really want less than 5, because that's a real suppression level that you can really stop outbreaks. And, you know, when their cases arise, you find them quickly and you isolate, do contact tracing, isolate people, and then they really resolve quickly. And so the nice thing is we have multiple areas that are around us that are close to that 5 threshold. So this is another great sign that our vaccinations and our community immunity is really driving the metrics in the right area, into the right way. So here's the total test positivity through May 15th. The number of tests conducted with our town were 20% lower, but we also had fewer cases, 60% less cases. So that's kind of understood. Test positivity last week this report was 1.21%. It was down from 2.88% 2 weeks ago. So this is another great drop, and it's trending in the same way as our cases. So these two things together really show us that things are improving, and even better, all of the areas that we track are less than 1.5%, which is excellent. And then this is my favorite, favorite information, because when you talk about that community immunity concept, vaccinations are the way you get there without having people have illness or potential sequelae following an infection and disease. So this data comes from the weekly vaccination report by municipality that was released today, and it goes through the 18th. So Tuesday is the last day the data was collected. Littleton has done an amazing job with vaccinations. We have about 71% of residents who have received at least one dose, and 57% of our residents, and all residents of all ages, are fully vaccinated now. So this is an amazing metric. When I look at the school-aged children, the state finally broke out 12 to 15 for us and 16 to 19. So we get a real feel for like school level vaccinations. Not all of these students will be in Littleton schools, but it gives us an idea of what's happening in our school system. So the 16 to 19-year-olds, 72% of them have had at least one dose. So that's, sophomores to seniors. Great job. That's amazing. And then the 12 to 15-year-olds just became eligible last Thursday. So for within the 6 days, the first 6 days of their eligibility, 42% of Littleton's kids in this age group received their first dose. And I know that number is going to go higher because I've seen plenty of other people, such as myself, bring their kids to get vaccinations today. So, or later this week, Wednesday, Thursday, and have appointments for later. So this is an amazing, amazing progress. And this is really going to help us keep our schools and activities and everything open. So here are the health notifications the schools send out. We have had a flurry of activity over the last 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks. Last week we had those 5 cases that were reported, and this week we've had one more. And so it was a little, I'll go into it for a second, but so if you think about it, it's this over the same 2-week period, we had 6 cases in the school, and the town reported 11 cases. And in the past, when we had 6 cases reported in the school, I expected to see 2.5 to 3 cases per each kid, because there's someone else at home, that there was household spread happening. But because there's so much vaccination and parents are vaccinated or siblings are vaccinated, we're kind of decoupling from that household transmission. And I hope that's something that's just not just this week, that we keep going. I don't want kids to be cases, but the more that we decouple transmission within the household, the less spread we're going to have across our community anyway. So those vaccinations are, again, helping us here. And when we look at which schools had the letters, it's not surprising that the 3 schools that have kids who were not eligible for vaccinations are the ones where we saw cases. We had, over the 2-week period, we had 3 at Shaker Lane, 2 at Russell Street, and 1 at the middle school. So the good news is we have the pooled testing to track these kids who are not vaccinated, especially in the elementary schools in particular, and also the middle school and high school for people who chose not to get vaccinated, or just to make sure there's no transmission post-vaccination. So we have a tool that we can also use to help us track anything we do from at this point on, and just to make sure things aren't happening. But with the number of vaccinated middle schooler and high schoolers, it's going to be harder and harder to get transmission going. And I'm going to let Lynn Snow, I didn't get an update about pool testing, so I'm going to let Lynn Snow do that after I'm done. So as they've said over and over, I'm just going to keep saying the word vaccines, because really the vaccines are the solution for COVID. And everything else we've done is just trying to slow the spread and mitigate the situation until we had vaccines, and we got vaccines and now we're using them and it's working. And because we've done so well with our vaccination program, our rates in our state have been driven lower in our area, in our town. And we have really set ourselves up for a really good post-COVID reopening phase, which now that everyone's heard the CDC releasing their updated guidance for vaccinated people, and also the state's reopening announcements, we are in that next phase. We are entering that next phase of things. And that's as it should be with a good vaccination program. So the state's announcements, we have Governor Baker announced that the state of emergency will end in mid-June, which is amazing. given that just over a year ago, we had the state of emergency, we had no vaccines, we had no tools to get to this point, but now we're at the point where we can lift it. The last of the COVID business restrictions, reopening restrictions, will be lifted on May 29th, so just in time for Memorial Day. And the mask order will be lifted on May 29th to be replaced by a face covering advisory based on CDC guidelines. There will be places where masks will be required. I know Dr. Clenchey is going to review that later today. So I know there's also been policy changes in this last week with youth sports and other activities. And the good news is we have pooled testing to really keep an eye on how those kind of changes are going and to make sure they're not entering our school and transmitting in our school. So the one thing is don't get rid of your mask yet, because there are locations that will require them still, such as if you're going into a hospital or medical care facility. And also local businesses and workplaces can require that you still wear a mask for a little bit. So depending on the quality of the ventilation system in your office or things like that, we might still be beneficial to wear a mask. And we've talked for months now of the same underlying conditions that we've discussed and we know are important, are still important to keep in consideration, especially for unvaccinated people. So if you're not vaccinated, time indoors, no masks, or an area with low or no ventilation, those are the times where you should really continue to take precautions. And unvaccinated individuals, including kids, the CDC still advises everyone to continue wearing masks and using social distancing in most settings, especially indoor settings. So we're talking again, the ventilation thing is a big deal. Indoor settings have been shown to have transmission events when care is not taken. So, but we also have vaccines. So we're getting to that point where hopefully we're balancing the two out. And then if you or someone else in your household is immunocompromised, there's some data about the vaccines that indicate that maybe they're not working as well for people who are immunocompromised, or if there's someone in your house who's unvaccinated and has risk factors for severe COVID, it's really important to make sure that everyone who is eligible to get vaccinated in your household is vaccinated to help protect that person, and also discuss with your doctor what other precautions you should take when you go out in public to protect yourself or your family. And I just want to end tonight on a little mental health note. While the pandemic is not over worldwide, we are very lucky here in the United States to have early and robust access to vaccines. So we are in this place where we are coming out of this part of the pandemic much earlier than the other countries in the world. And we are here because of our high vaccination rates and the significant impact they've had on our trends. So the announcements that came this week, everyone reacted very differently. And some people celebrated them, some people were really upset, and a lot of people were confused. As my son said to me this morning, I'm getting mixed messages. And it's going to take time for all of us to readjust and retrain our brains to know what's appropriate and where we want to take risks and where we don't. So when I started these presentations last fall, I also just I very purposely started following a very diverse group of experts, just because I didn't want to be isolating myself to one group's thoughts on how the pandemic should go. And also news sources. And then whenever they mentioned, studies or whatever, I actually went back to the original documents and tried to really understand what was happening and not just take their point of view. And over this last week, when the CDC released its guidance, and even mass released its announcements about relaxing things and reopening completely, there was a wide range of reactions to these changes among the medical and science community as well, which also revealed, as you look at their thoughts and discussions, that there's actually a wide range of behaviors and policies that were consistent with current science, the things we know about COVID. So one thing I just want to caution people as we go forward and we're learning more, that there are opinion leaders across the board who speak on certain issues, but I've noticed they really do so through the lens of what's happening in their local area and their lived experience, and then also tend to focus only on the data that supports what they're saying, which we all do. And that's why it's really important to try to diversify who you're following right now, because as we go forward, we're going to get varying views of how we should continue, especially as the pandemic continues to spread worldwide. So anyway, over the coming weeks, we're going to get back to people having a wide variety of reactions and taking different timelines to adoption of the new policies. And I just want to reassure everyone that is completely normal. At the end of the day, we've had a shared collective trauma, and we have to process that and readjust and keep getting through it. So, and one of the things I know as a parent, and I hope others will join me, is to try to help our children understand that, the mask is the most obvious thing that people see. So if people choose to wear masks in settings where they don't need to, just to helping them understand that it's okay for them to do so. And that is it's a legitimate choice, and that's okay. And in the end of the day, I want to walk away not with people feeling down. Our metrics are really great. It will be great to see these continue over the next couple of weeks. So we're setting ourselves up for a really bright summer, and a chance to heal and enjoy company again and faces. So we just keep working through this together. We are in this final step together as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Katrina. I appreciate that. As always, it's very informative, and you're sharing some really great news. I know I myself brought my son to get vaccinated today, and I saw a number of Littleton residents, kids getting vaccinated. So Littleton's doing an awesome job doing that. And I also appreciate your comments at the end about different people's reactions. Now, I feel I'm one of the people who's very happy about the relaxation because I'm comfortable with it, but I understand that not everybody is, and we're gonna do everything as a school committee to make everyone be comfortable, and let them know it is safe. And we're going to talk later about doffing the masks outside, which is something I think is going to be really good for a lot of kids. But kids, as you said, who may not be comfortable first, if they want to wear the mask, certainly we'll talk about that more. But I'll open it up to other school committee members with comments. Brad, I had a feeling you might have a question or a comment.
Yeah, it's just, Katrina, I've always appreciated your presentations, but I've rarely liked them. This one I liked. This was great to see and great to hear. I do have one question. Again, I'm not a scientist. I noticed that the numbers really improved 2 weeks ago, which is almost precisely when Mike Fontanella left this body. Do you think that's a causation, or is it a correlation? Do you think replacing Mike with Jen is what really improved things? Or
we would have to do a retest, so to see if it's correlation or causation.
Okay, thank you.
Jen does bring a brightness to this panel, though, so it could be.
Mike always did have a dark cloud hanging over him.
It's just the sunroom, guys. It's not me.
Any other board member? Dustin?
Sure. Thanks, Katrina. So I guess my question is, can we really expect the numbers to get much better than where they are right now? There's obviously going to be a portion of the population that's vaccine hesitant by choice, or maybe there's an underlying condition that's going to prevent them from that. So, 8.1 per 100,000. It's hard to try to think of what 100,000 is. So I did some quick math. Fenway Park holds 37,000 people. So imagine you're at Fenway Park, the place is jammed, and 2.9 people are going to get COVID that are in attendance. I mean, that's like virtually nobody per day, of course. So I'm wondering if, can we really expect the numbers to get any better? The numbers are terrific where they are. The vaccine rollout locally and throughout the state has been awesome. So that's great to see. And then I want to just kind of recognize the fact that we're never going to be in a zero risk situation with this. You alluded to it. There are other countries, there are other places in the world where it's raging, and it's likely that our vaccines are going to wear off, and it's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be a seasonal thing, or we're going to need boosters, or it's, we're not going to probably beat this thing down to zero. So we probably need to stay cognizant of what our reopening is going to look like. Brad, you're on that reopening committee, so heads up. What the reopening efforts are going to look like in terms of trying to get back to fully normal when we recognize we're never going to get to zero. And then the other question I would ask, or have maybe the Littleton COVID advisory team start thinking about, is our pooled testing efforts. I realized that when we started, it seemed like it was an awesome idea, and it still is. But I got to think that at some point, Massachusetts is going to pull back the funding on this, because Baker just rolled out, no masks for children outside. And at some point, maybe he's going to roll back no masks for children inside. And the pool testing funds are going to go away shortly. So we probably need to be thinking about, is this something that as a school district, we want to think about funding? And even if we did, what's the opportunity cost from the administration? There are people that are dedicated to running this pool testing program, and could they potentially doing other things to better serve the district? So just kind of leave you guys with those thoughts.
I do have to say, in terms of can these get lower, I am hopeful that they can, because that 10 to 14 age group, some of whom just became eligible for vaccine last week, so it doesn't hit their rates yet, we're at the highest level. So I do think with the 12 pluses continuing to get vaccinated and their siblings helping to protect their siblings, I think we can get a little lower. But yes, we're not going to be at zero. We're in the green. We're going to be in the gray. That's my prediction in a couple of weeks. And I think we have to be comfortable with that. So at this point, by the end of the school year, everyone 12 plus who has wanted to get vaccinated will have had the opportunity to get vaccinated, especially in Littleton, where access isn't an issue. And so we will have, we'll be reaching that point where we've hit our threshold of who's going to get vaccinated. And then I did hear that 6 to 11 might be eligible for vaccines as of early fall. So if that's true, then that helps protect our elementary school kids, and that takes away that need for pooled testing.
That's great news, and I can attest that and getting an appointment now for my teenagers is much easier than it was to get an appointment for my parents back in February and March. So not hard. So if people want to take advantage of the opportunity, certainly I encourage them to do so. Any other questions for Katrina? Comments? Justin, I also like that Fenway Park analogy. I kind of said, like, it's kind of like your chances of catching a foul ball. And I've gone to Fenway many times. I've never got a foul ball. Maybe now, if I go before the 29th, when they open up to 100% capacity, I might be able to snag one.
It's harder now with all the nets up there, because no one's paying attention. So
that's true. All right. Okay. Do we have any questions from hands raised, Dorothy, regarding the metrics? No. Okay. With that, we're going to turn it over to Superintendent Clenchy for the LPS District slideshow for 2021.
Thanks, Matt. I think Katrina asked Lynn to.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I jumped. Forgive me.
Oh, that's all right.
That's okay. No news is good news. I continue to have no positive pools to report.
That is great news. We also wanted to tell you tonight that our COVID dashboard is up and running on our website. We had talked about that a few weeks ago. Special thanks to everybody involved, including Mrs. Philpott, our lead nurse in COVID. COVID everything, you could say. She's has her hands in everything that involves COVID mitigation and testing. So we're pleased to have that site up. If you get a minute, please go in and check it out. Good information. And I think this year it was especially important that we took the time to create a slideshow. We've had, as we all know, a number of changes in learning plans. We've implemented mitigation strategies to keep our staff and students as safe as possible. When you watch the slideshow, it's going to be very evident to you that our students continue to learn. I'm very proud of both our students and staff. We all worked hard. We were up to the challenge, and our models were very successful. And later on tonight, when we talk about summer learning, Mrs. Steele will be talking about some of the data we have in those areas. So it's really exciting to see our year coming close to an end, and also
One moment.
Let's just,
Kelly, if you can hear me, you're breaking up or you're frozen. I'm getting in touch with him.
He switched rooms.
Okay. No, he's in the same. Well, why don't we run the video and I will try phoning him and we'll go from there. Steve?
Okay, looks like we got Kelly back. Dr. Clenchey.
Thank you. My internet seems to be a little unstable where I am tonight. Hopefully that was it, and they're not giving me the signal that it's time to leave, and they're going to shut the lights out on me. But I'm going to assume that's not going to happen. So I'd like to thank our tech department, Littleton High School yearbook, Shay Reagan, our high school librarian, Mr. Orzik, for creating this year's slideshow. Slideshows tell 1,000 words. Every picture does, and it's very evident. I hope it was as evident to you as it was to me that all of our students adjusted to this year, and it was through the hard work of everybody, our teachers, all of our staff, our students, and our families. We all worked hard together to make this year successful, and I'm confident that we're going to have a strong finish.
Great. And Dr. Clenchey, if someone wanted to get the soundtrack for that, who would they ask for the name of the song? They went along with the slideshow.
Actually, just send Mrs. Malone an email, and we can certainly get that to you.
Awesome, thank you. Someone was asking me, so I don't want it, but I was just curious.
That video was great. I don't know if I can just jump in and say thank you for those who put it together. It clearly took a lot of work and definitely encapsulated this very strange year really well. So thank you.
Any other comments before we move on? Brad? Anybody say Brad? No. Okay. We have a few, I'm sorry, let me just get back to school improvement plan updates from Dr. John Harrington from the high school and Michelle Kane from Shaker Lane. Who wants to go first? Or
be happy to go, Chairman.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, and that's a nice intro with the slideshow. I think the music might be credited at the end of it.
I'll tell the person who asked.
Yeah, I think the credits came up at the end. All right, so we got the screen ready to go. Okay, so tonight's presentation is more about, I would say, recognition and gratitude rather than accomplishment. But there's certainly our share of accomplishments, as Dr. Clenchey mentioned just prior to this presentation. Overall, general accomplishments. Very excited and proud of the fact that Littleton High School was cited as the second best, high school in Massachusetts or in Greater Boston by Boston Magazine back in September. We also are very appreciative for all the work of the reopening planning committee. It was a comprehensive summer planning for a safe and successful September reopening and launch of hybrid model. Effective planning and preparation for a safe and successful April 12th return to 5 days of in-person learning. That's certainly an accomplishment, something we're all proud of and grateful for the staff and everybody who contributed to that. Curriculum. In terms of curriculum, I'll just gloss on it over a few things. There were detailed curriculum presentations previously provided by curriculum coordinators and the director of curriculum or teaching and learning, Beth Steele. So I'll sort of just gloss over things rather than review everything that you've already heard. Citing a few things in particular, the offering of dual enrollment courses continues to expand at Littleton High School with Middlesex Community College in environmental science, English, Latin, French, and statistics, and a number of other areas. We continued our seal of bioliteracy, and that is certainly an accomplishment for Littleton and some other schools that participate in this in Massachusetts. It's really special recognition that students at Littleton High School can demonstrate proficiency in another language upon graduation, and they have to pass a test now to demonstrate that mastery. Other areas of accomplishment, we're really excited about the more attention we're paying to financial literacy, particularly certain curriculum areas with units in economics and statistics courses. We expect to expand this next year with a financial literacy fair. This was put on hold this past year due to the pandemic. We received a state grant for this, but the state graciously, allowed us to postpone it and still be able to use funds next year. So we're looking forward to the launch of that, and that will engage a lot of local community partners and financial institutions who will help us with a financial literacy fair at Littleton. Yeah, I think you had a presentation just recently from curriculum coordinator Mike Festukas about civics and the emphasis on this at Littleton High School and projects. This continues to expand as part of the state initiative to expand civic-wide education, particularly in the 8th grade across Massachusetts, but also in the high school and our US 2 courses and throughout the different grade levels. So I'm proud of the work the History and Social Science Department has done on this. I also want to mention that environmental science course has added culturally inclusive lessons. You can see that this is not just a thing that's been applied to the humanities, but it's also being integrated in the natural sciences. The elements of importance of cultural inclusiveness and making sure students are aware of equity and diversity in different curricular areas. Next slide. Next slide is just a recap of certain courses that are additional to the high school and the social science department, or revised slightly, the world history one being a revision, the elective of global studies, in addition, race and membership in America, the new course. This was already presented to you, but I just wanted to highlight it as an area of emphasis in making sure the community knew about these courses that Mike Festukas mentioned. We can go to the next slide. Okay, I wanted to give a shout out to retiring physics teacher, Dr. Dan Hogan. We have another month with Dan before he retires. He was remote for most of the year, did come back April 12th, but he purchased and used a telepresence robot while he was teaching from home and able to be present, very present. The robot moved about the room. His face was on it. He could see what it tilted. He had all remote control over this whole thing. And he was able to move about the room, giving kids personalized instruction, looking at their work up close, being able to be part of small groups at lab tables, and being able to, again, provide a real personalized approach, very engaging style instruction. So Dan has promised to bequeath his robot to the science department. He says he won't need it in his retirement, so he's going to leave that as part of his legacy, among so many other things at Littleton High School. But Dan gets special recognition for that. I also want to recognize the whole science department. As often as possible, the science department came up with strategies for all students to have meaningful hands-on lab experience. This was something we were really puzzled by during the summer, how we were going to do this. But, I think over time, we all saw the emphasis on high-touch services, so the concern about high-touch services, shared equipment kind of wane over time, thankfully. So we got to that point. The math highlights are just there for reference for the school committee and the public. These are things that curriculum coordinator Elizabeth Rigo went over in detail, along with so many other things in the math department that they can be proud of. But you can just take a glance at that before we go to the next slide. Thanks, Steve. This year, like so many other high schools around us, there were no separate mid-year, and there will be no final exams. We're using something we've actually been talking about for a long time, of really coming up with a different form of final assessments or summative assessments. We're seeing more performance-based assessments, more projects, more presentations, more research papers, and particular emphasis on presentations and projects and teamwork with joint projects, more like the workforce is. Much more beneficial to students in preparation for colleges too, that are thankfully coming around to this style. Students still get plenty of final exam or standardized test experience. As you know, we are mandated to do MCAS in the next couple of weeks at the high school, so there's no loss there in terms of their preparation to be able to sit and take a long exam prior to college. I think there were previous presentations I know from Dave Pascucci in the English department about map testing in ELA, and also Elizabeth did comment on how we're using this software or technology assessment, online assessment called ALEX, that really helps to reinforce math concepts for our students. So I will leave that to your attention. And then you can see that again at the bottom of this slide, our attention to project-based learning. If we go to the next slide. I know there have been comprehensive presentations throughout the year about what's gone on with professional development, so I just wanted to provide a list of some of the things that the high school faculty have participated in when it comes to faculty-led professional development, and the value of those early release days where faculty really engage in teamwork to create thoughtful lessons, revise curriculum, engage in collaboration on a variety of important topics. This was especially important. I want to thank the school committee and the community at large for their willingness to sponsor the 10 professional days at the start of the school year. It was incredibly helpful. I think it positioned us in a way that really surpassed other school districts in being ready to launch in September. Our staff needed to get up to speed, particularly with document cameras and how to teach in a hybrid model. Having a document camera, you're teaching simultaneously the kids at home, in many cases you can't see, and also students who are present. This was all new to so many faculty, and I'm very proud of all the work they did to, they accomplished quite a bit. And this list here sort of demonstrates that. The other highlight the school committee should know about tonight is that we will be launching a new bell schedule at the high school with extended time periods. We learned a lot from this past year, a lot of the lessons learned throughout the pandemic in schools in general across the country, but particularly for Littleton, we'll be able to probably recap them for you next year. Lessons learned that will be applied in the future. And one of them is our extended block, something we wanted to accomplish years ago. And we're going to launch a new bell schedule. It won't be quite as long, the mods that we have had this year. They'll be shortened, but we're really excited about the launch of this new bell schedule in September. We had to overnight pretty much in the summer plan a new bell schedule for this past September, and the staff really responded to that, and as did the students. Okay, we can go to the next slide. All right, I want to, Dr. Clenchey mentioned Paul Orzik, who was involved in planning the slideshow tonight. He's our library media specialist, incredible addition to Littleton High School's faculty, experienced library media specialist who has incredible skills, just a wonderful person. And I wanted to give him a special shout out and highlight on our presentation tonight, or in our presentation tonight. One of the things that Paul did this past year was he really updated the library media print collection with a heavy focus on inclusion, embracing diversity, promoting independent reading, and supporting the curriculum. He also deserves recognition as the yearbook advisor. He did a lot of tech integration collaboration with students, and he actually teaches it as a class through the innovation use of green screens, individual lapel mics. He's been all over this senior class with taking photos. He took one of the things that he's really skilled in is Adobe Photoshop and green screens, and all those athletic photos where you saw students that Mike Lynn tweeted out throughout the year, where students looked like they were in a team photo but they weren't. He compiled them. He made he consolidated individual photos, and I saw him working on that again for the spring season just this past week. He was taking photos of student athletes just yesterday, and then he'll compile them, make it look like a team photo, like they're all together. And so credit to him. The other thing the school committee should know about, like other schools, some are ahead of us, some are not so ready to launch. We're getting prepared to launch a VR esports team. I think there should be a presentation perhaps about this to the school committee next year if it does get underway. Esports is really an increasingly popular phenomenon in colleges and high schools across the country, and we want to get in on the action. We have a student body who are ready to do it, and Paul Orzik and a few other faculty are ready to support this, as well as the tech staff. So just wanted to give you some updates there. If we could go to the next slide. A lot of the things that you've already heard, but about community and communication, it's one of our strengths in our town and our school system. AP US History has done local history projects for years, and they continued that throughout the pandemic. The civics projects taking place in US2 I've already mentioned, working with local community to promote equity in our town. The other thing we tried to partner with is the other town departments, and we're happy that there was a new internship opportunity in science with the water department. And again, to mention Dan Hogan in recognition, AP Physics students have started to carry out experiments made possible by a generous grant from Littleton Light and Water Department over 15 months ago. Dan was telling me, getting so excited the other day in the classroom about all the work, all the things that students have learned from as a result of this grant. So thank you to Littleton Light and Water. All right, if we go to the next slide. Without necessarily not least, I want to just mention thanks to the PTA and all the booster organizations, the LEF, as we always do. We always recognize them at this time of the year for their active engagement and support. And that was especially pronounced in this past year. So thanks to them. Partnership with Littleton Cable TV, and we're on Littleton Cable TV. So I'd like to recognize Mark Crory, the executive director, for his help with graduation, basketball games, and other live streaming events throughout the year. Kirby Dolak and Judy Reed, I know, have also been supportive. So thank you. Especially, they were especially helpful last year with the graduation in preparation for it and being able to broadcast it for those who weren't able to attend. Thankfully, this year we'll live stream it again, but there'll be a much larger attendance now allowed this year due to the opening up on May 29th. A couple other things you can see there, traditional things. I also think the Rotary Club deserves recognition for each week. Members of the Rotary came by and helped in concert with our cafeteria staff. Were able to provide meals to the community, deliver them to senior citizens or those in need. So thank you to the Rotarians, and not only for that, but for all the other things they do for our school system. And a few other things for your reference that you may know about that we're proud of in terms of our communication and engagement with the town. You can go to the next slide. A couple of quick highlights. I'll give you a moment to take a look at them. Some of them are things from the past as well. We've consecutively been recognized by Special Olympics as a unified champion school for unified athletics. And again, I already mentioned the Boston Magazine piece. We held the Great Kindness Challenge, not only as Littleton High School recognized as a kindness certified school, but all the schools in Littleton are, and the district is at large. So thank you to Dr. Clenchey and all the school staff who participated in that, made that possible. Also wanted to recognize the Drama Club and Adam DeCoste in particular, our drama director from the past year, who throughout this past year went about town in different school settings, including some of the parks around town. People saw him filming scenes, and he engaged students who were not able to be in drama productions either in the fall or the spring on stage and in live performance in our theater. He was able to engage them with scene study sessions, monologue meetings. So there's a typo on Shakespeare workshops, and produce a Romeo and Juliet film that will be coming out. That's in production now. So thanks to Adam and the whole drama club for that. I also want to recognize Mike Lynn for a really safe and successful operation of 4 interscholastic athletics seasons. I know it's been mentioned at previous school committee meetings, but it was no easy feat. Mike continues to do just an extraordinary amount of work and put in hours to make that possible. If we could go to the next. Just a quick list there for you to take a look at some of the things that are part of our climate and culture. It's been mentioned before, but pulling off a safe and fun prom at this time, we're really proud of that. A lot of schools did not do it at all. I wouldn't touch it, wouldn't go near it. And thankfully, we learned from our experience of really engaging others and being able to pull it off. And it was one of the most fun proms I've been to, where I saw kids just having so much joy, exhibiting so much joy, and just the time to be together. So lots of positive feedback in the aftermath of the prom too. Emails from parents and just conversations with students and parents since then has been really wonderful. We did a mass partnerships and youth presentation about healthy relationships this past month to our students. Grateful for Lynn Snow and Beth Steele for helping make this possible, bring this to our students. Presentation went over really well. All our students benefit from learning about healthy relationships. So thank you for that. And another thing I want to make mention of is our active National Honor Society. This is an incomplete list. You'll see the sub bullets under there of all the things they engaged in. You saw some of them actually captured in the slideshow, but they did so much this past year. So thanks to the National Honor Society, and as well as the Active Humanitarian Club, both supported by Susan Harvey. The NHS is also advised by Danielle Bearden. So thank you to them. Next slide. Again, technology, deployment of the document cameras with tight time constraints. That was an amazing purchase, Steve. You and Natalie and Julie coordinating that on such short notice and being able to procure all those document cameras for all our teachers and classrooms really made it possible for us to have a successful hybrid model. The third bullet down is really more of an accomplishment for the tech team than the high school, but I wanted to put in there and take it from the technology presentation because high school benefited from the tech support website, and thank you to the tech team. Again, we already mentioned the 10 days of professional development. If we go down to the next slide. And this is a short list, but at all the curriculum coordinators in their various presentations at the prior meetings mentioned all the different technology tools. Here's just a few I took from their presentations. This could probably go on for several slides, a much lengthier list of all the different and new, in some cases, instructional technology tools that our teachers adopted throughout this pandemic and became, in many cases, experts at, and really enhanced and engaging lessons. So, that's something I want to recognize tonight. Now I feel is an accomplishment for our school, and it really is an accomplishment district-wide in all the schools. And you can see all the Google mentions there, because it's pretty much a Google district with all that we do with Chromebooks. Next slide. I'll end with a note of appreciation, certainly to the school committee and the entire community, our teachers, staff, everyone involved. Dr. Clenchey said it at the outset of this meeting, that this was a year unlike any other that we've experienced, and it took everybody coming together to make all these accomplishments possible and get to where we are today. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Harrington. Obviously, a lot of great things going on at Littleton High School, and I again just want to thank the teachers and staff for rising to the challenge of this year. At this point, I'll open it up to school committee members. Were any questions or comments? Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I really appreciate the presentation, Dr. Harrington. There are a couple things I just wanted to highlight that because I think it's really noteworthy. In some ways, they're responding to the entire year. The kind of curriculum-wide focus on diversity and inclusion, I think, is appropriate. I love seeing it in the sciences and other things. It can't just be a social studies issue. Two things it seems like you've been wanting to do for a while, but this this crisis pandemic kind of was a catalyst for changes that I just really like. I love the new long blocks. I love they're gonna be a little shorter than 90 minutes. So if we get into the 80s, that's right, the sweet spot where you can have real discussions, but not go too far and stretch it out too long. And I just gotta say the shift in assessments away from focus from midterms and finals towards more project-based stuff is, I think it's exactly where we should be as a district, and I want to applaud your team for doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's definitely something that's been part of our school improvement plan for a while, and it just helped to helped us all to execute it in a rapid way. Sometimes, Brad, being part of higher ed, that school systems and colleges are slow to move and make changes. And this is something we wanted to do, and we did it in a rapid way. So thank you.
We'll serve our students really well when they go off to the workforce or the college. So well done.
Thanks, Brad. Anyone else have a comment before we move on?
Matt, I just wanted to mention that, especially for the school committee as a whole, I know some of you have been on our school committee for a year, but with COVID, we really haven't had a lot of time to talk about some of the processes that we have in place in our district. The school improvement plans are linked to our district strategic plan, and we have 5 standards: curriculum assessment, instruction, professional development, community communication, climate culture, and technology. Our SIPs, school improvement plans, are also aligned to our strategic plan. Our educators' goals are aligned to both the strategic plan and the school improvement plan, the school in which they teach. And administrators' evaluations are also aligned to the school and district strategic plan. So that makes a huge difference in our schools and in our district to know the direction that we're going in, and having a document that we're all working to actualize. Looking forward to next year, when I'm going to be an optimist and say that things are going to even look more normal as to what we're used to than they are today, and we can get back spending more time on some of these other processes that we have in place in our schools and district.
Thanks, Dr. Clenchey. Okay, with that, we can turn it over to Michelle Kane, and she can tell us all about what's going on at Shaker Lane.
Great, thank you, Chairman. So first I want to start off by saying thank you to our staff, which I'm going to thank them again at the end, but none of this would be possible without them. So we can go right to the first slide. I will be short and sweet. There we go. So curriculum instruction and assessment. Some of this was presented during the budget presentation, but there's been a few pieces added since then. When I came on board in 2017, we had a phonics program that was kind of embedded in our literacy program, but it wasn't robust enough. So we did some looking at some different programs, and we brought in the Foundations program a few years ago. And this year, we are in our first full year of K1 and 2 having a full multisensory approach to phonics, which I feel is benefiting the children. This year, I'm not sure if we're going to continue with it, but we brought in the Pioneer Valley online reading platform, which has helped many of our teachers read with students in a remote setting. So they have the books in a virtual setting, and the students are able to look at them. The teachers can manipulate the books online. It was a great resource for remote learning. We purchased that this year for our staff. We also have Mrs. McGregor has helped out a lot with our K-2 students receiving Imaginatorium STEM bags throughout the year, where they were giving a bag of materials and they have to come up with something, and she's done that for all of our grade levels, so we appreciate her involvement with that. Our second graders had a virtual meeting with the visiting scientists from the pharmaceutical company that you see there to learn about the states of matter. And when I asked the second grade teachers what this was all about, they were talking, if you have a second grader, they came home with oobleck, and that was a result of this curriculum experience for the students. Last year, right before the pandemic, Mrs. Steele and several teachers, both at Shaker Lane and Russell Street, worked on researching a writing program for our K-5 students. And our hope was to implement it this year and start the pilot. It's been a quasi-implementation, so we're going to move into it full force next year. But several teachers did take on this task of teaching writing virtually and in person. Next year, we look forward to a full in-person pilot of the program, but we did start a little bit of that this year. Next slide, please. For professional development, we started to work on this a lot last year, and then the pandemic hit. We're hoping to have more in-person PD on this year, but developing guided reading lesson plans for students where lessons are built around students' guided reading level. So if a child is reading at a certain level, level C, then there are lesson plans built around books at their level that have comprehension questions, inferencing questions, other questions, and things tied into the structure of the book. We started that last year. We hope to continue that in the year to come. This year we had the Lexia online program purchased. This is a phonics-based reading program that really supports students at their level. It adapts. It's an adaptive reading program. We're hoping to continue it in some format next year for our students. The teachers really enjoyed this platform this year, so we're hoping to continue that next year. I think the biggest professional development that started way back in August was the hybrid teaching, how to live stream, how to actually handle, 10 kids in front of you and 10 kids at home at the same time, where to stand, which camera dock to use, two computers. So, I mean, props and kudos to the teachers for going through that very difficult time and learning how to have 5, 6, and 7-year-olds engaged online at home and them also in front of you. So lots of PD around that, including a number of technology applications and tools for remote learning. This year, we also had Dr. Khalees Warnham come in. She did some PD with the leadership team and then also with our staff. And we also had George Kuros come in from some district-wide PD. And our staff at Shaker Lane, 2 of our kindergarten teachers led a multicultural book study talking about how to pick multicultural books, how to engage with them, with students at our grade level. And that actually morphed into a staff meeting where we brought these ideas into specifically our school for the staff that weren't able to visit this PD. We're looking forward to continuing that next year as well. Next slide, please. So for community and communication, there was a lot of it this year. Our school advisory council, so excited to have shared that home support guide back in, I think it was December. We hope that families found that as a good resource while we were virtually learning for many of us. And feel free to refer to that for any kind of activities you might need. Ms. Garlisi and I also put out a virtual community meeting earlier this year. We're doing another one in a couple of weeks. We created a holiday vacation video where I asked parents to send us some pictures of them during winter break, put it together to rhythms music. And then when the kids came back in the new year, I sent it out like the night before so they could see video of how they spent their summer vacation. We also had Miss Matherin write a snow day video that we sent out and ended up being a remote learning day video, which the students loved. We find them singing the song Levitating, but we're sanitizing at Shaker Lane. So that was kind of fun to watch and create. We also had quite a few virtual nights at Shaker Lane this year. We had Shaky Storytime event. These are all Friday night events. Excuse me, where we had breakout rooms and teachers were reading stories to kids and they could visit for a certain period of time. We had a dance party with DJ Renee, played music, kids were dancing, glow lights, black lights. That was a lot of fun. And we had our virtual Winterfest, which had some art painting with Mrs. Hemis, an art project. There was a magic show. There was stuffing a shaky with myself and Miss Deacon. We think the kids really like that. And we had the dance party. DJ Renee came back. We also have a military dad who is overseas for about a year. And we are supporting him with another woman who is putting together some care packages and supporting him overseas. So we're happy to be part of that. Excuse me for 1 second. I usually don't talk this much. We also continue our collaboration with Littleton High School. I worked with the assistant principal at the high school to bring a couple of students down, and they are currently working in classrooms. I think their last day was today. So we wish them well tomorrow when they graduate, when they have their senior parade. Empowering Families Evening. Mrs. Barth put this on last year. It was anxiety and SEL at Shaker Lane. It was giving parents strategies on how to help students with social emotional challenges or anxieties. And then just a couple months ago, I sent out an email to our families to send in a picture or a drawing or something that describes excuse me, that describes a cultural event that they do at home. So we had some families send in a picture of them in their attire. We had families making certain cookies, certain foods that were part of the genre, and we hung these pictures up in our lobby as a tribute to the cultures that we celebrate at Shaker Lane. Excuse me. Next slide. For climate and culture at Shaker Lane, this past fall, we hosted a virtual trivia night. That was very fun for our staff, where we just had some fun one Friday night and got together and did some virtual trivia. We started multicultural morning greetings. So we say hello in a different language every week. So this week, I believe, is buongiorno. Buongiorno, which is Italian for good morning. And then we read the rest of the messages in English, but we talk to the kids. We've gotten ideas from students. When I walk up and down the car line, sometimes I ask parents what they, how to say it in their language. So it's a way for us to bring that into our school and the students hear it. And I know they get excited to hear that language. I mentioned this before, but we talked about multicultural picture books with activities that Beth Bell and Belia Furbush put on this year. Miss Deacon and I hosted the next two events for our staff. I mean, we just can't thank them enough. In Friday, we did Fab Fridays for our staff. We had one Friday was right before the Super Bowl. We did chips and salsa for them. We had a bingo day where if they won, they came down to the office for a prize. We also had pizza and dessert and cookies and drinks one Friday, just to celebrate that month and celebrate all their hard work from August till then. And then we did holiday cookie treats for our staff as well. We continue to pass around the paw print of Excellent Month Award that usually goes out in June, or I'm sorry, usually goes out the first of the month. To one staff member picks another staff member to recognize. We celebrate it. We make the announcements over the morning announcements, and we share who it's been passed on to, and why we are celebrating the staff member. Ms. Deacon and I continue to do shaky notes of recognition to the kids, to the staff, recognizing them for showing heart and all the good that they do. And recently in a staff meeting, we did a kind of like a check-in with our staff on how we were feeling. And Danya Scalar, our school psychologist, helped lead this, and more of a time for us to come together and take a breath and see how things are going with us. And we found that meeting to be one of our best meetings, to just kind of appreciate where we've gone. And some days are tough, some days are easy, and some days, you know, it's been a rough year. And I think that we needed a moment for us to come together to check in. So I appreciate that time that we had together. Last slide, technology. We continue to have our Digital Citizenship Award. And this, I believe, was in conjunction with Mrs. McGregor. It's just really teaching our children how at this age to be digital citizens, how to not borrow the kids' passwords, how to use just their devices. Excuse me. There are lessons at each grade level. And just a couple of weeks ago, Mrs. McGregor set up a green screen out on the field, and the kids, the back of the screen was April showers bring May flowers, and the kids made videos to this. I think technology, our hybrid model of synchronous learning. Our grade 1 students use the augmented reality app and Quiver as part of an animals unit study. Miss Deacon and I, when we had our remote Wednesdays, we created virtual announcements every Wednesday. We'd record them and we'd send them out in Google Classroom, and we'd send them out in Seesaw for the students, so that the kids at home could see us and hear the announcements at least once a week with us. And then there shouldn't be a question mark at the end of that. I apologize. Seesaw and Google Classroom platforms were also something kind of new for us this year. We kind of dabbled with Seesaw in the past, but now I feel like that's part of our curriculum. So in just concluding this presentation, this year would not be possible without our staff, from Miss Deacon to the staff, to the admin assistants, to our custodians. It really has been quite a year, and all of these accomplishments would not be possible without each and every one of them. And I am so fortunate to work with them. So thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Kane. You know, I was just thinking as I'm watching all these great things you're doing, that back when I went to Shaker Lane in 1983, 1984, you know, all we had was construction paper, paste, and safety scissors. So I think we've come a long way, and I think that's awesome. So any comments or questions from the staff?
I'll jump in if that's all right. Yeah, Matt? Okay. Michelle, great job. I've got 2 at the school, so I see all the stuff firsthand. And I just want to let you know that all the community activities were impactful and meaningful. And maybe before you planned them, you didn't know how well they were going to go. But I want to let you know that it meant a lot to the Shaker Lynn families. And I just want to thank you. And then what was cool was the slide that you shared with all of the staff stuff, because as a parent, we don't know that stuff's going on. So really happy that you shared all of that and that you guys made some awesome connections this year. So just want to say, job well done. Thanks.
I would second that. Thank you for everything you guys have done. I think you've created an environment in a very uncertain time pretty quickly that created safety and consistency for the kids, which is really important, especially for the young ones. So thank you and all the staff there.
Anyone else? Brad, go for it.
Yeah, I'd like to say I always figured you were older than that because all the gray in the beard, but maybe I'm wrong. So another great presentation, Michelle. It strikes me as I listen to these presentations about just how many different things we've had to respond to, and respond in, I think, thoughtfully and effectively, as Justin and Jen just said. I hope we'll take advantage of the chance we're going to have to kind of reflect on these innovations that came up and figure how much of this just needs to be part of our practice moving forward. I love the idea of the Empowering Families events. I love the idea of taking staff time to really connect with people and not just be talking about curriculum and things. I hope that, when we get a chance to breathe after all of this, we can reflect on the fact not only that did we get through it, we got through it really well, but also we may have learned some things and developed some new practices that will help us moving forward. So thank you.
Thanks, Brad. I think we've all had certain discussions how this pandemic has affected us, positive and negative, and there's lots of things that we're going to take away that were positive that we hope to continue to capitalize on.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think, this wasn't the ideal situation, but I think that it made us all better teachers in a lot of ways. So, Timlin, did you have anything you wanted to add before we turn it over?
No, I'm all set. Thank you to John and Michelle for your presentations. They were very informative.
Okay, and Dorothy, I do see a hand raised.
I wasn't sure if you wanted to take it. Okay.
That's fine.
Matthew Ridge, please state your name, your question, and your street, please.
Yes, Matthew Ridge, 325 Great Road. I've been listening, and so far everything sounds relatively good. I mean, we are moving forward, which is a good thing. I do have a quick question because it was somewhat alluded to, but in a passing way. What is our status for the children in general for being indoors with masks? I mean, I know you said is basically outside maskless is okay if the child wants to, indoors if the circulation is good and everything else. Now, as far as I remember, we were told that the circulation inside the school systems would be sufficient with masks on. What about with masks off?
I think I'll turn it over to Dr. Clenchey, Matthew, but I think currently right now, schools inside within the state are one of the few places where masks are still going to be required, much like nursing home and care facilities. Right now, that's not really up to us to open it up. That's one of the places where it's still restricted. Dr. Clenchey, did you want to add anything to that?
Sure. At this point in time, there is no intention in the near future to decrease our mitigation strategies inside our buildings. It's specific to wearing of masks. I mean, we're hoping as more children become vaccinated, as we continue to get a better control on the virus, we will see more changes in the fall. But I just had a meeting with the Commissioner of Education yesterday, and with that meeting, CDC releases, DPH releases, they're certainly not ready for that next step. But again, if things keep going the way they are, and vaccinations are able to be given to younger children, I can see some further changes coming around the corner.
All right, because I mean, it just seems to me we're going to be running into a situation where, I mean, honestly, people are starting to just say enough is enough, because our children, especially the younger ones, have shown no indication of actually being super spreaders. They've shown no instance of actually getting sick per se as well. I mean, it seems to me that, especially with how many people inside the school system are already vaccinated, I mean, this isn't throwing caution to the wind, but this is basically putting I just feel that we are putting our worries before, for all intended purposes, the facts, because I mean, there cannot be 100% immunity. There cannot be 100% anything, as it's already been proven. So I mean, if we're already at like 70 to 80%, I mean, we're basically, I cannot see us getting anything close to 90 to 100%. Because there are just going to be some people out there that will not want the shots given or taken until more is known about it. Because even though we do have vaccines, this is a relatively new vaccine and has gone through a very quick process of being accepted as viable without the standard testing systems put in place. And before anybody says anything, I actually worked with NRA products in the past, so I do know a little bit about this. And it is still a very effective and very new system out there, but the system that I worked with in the past, we are in our 6th year of attempting to get this thing in, this shot that we're working on actually into the open market. It has shown to be 100% effective with what we're working on, but we still have to go through everything. And this was done in like 6 months of 1 year. So, I mean, for some people, there is worry, and I can understand where it's coming from. But I'm more worried about that we are going to play overly safe, because our children's health, although is significant and mandatory for us parents, we also need to worry about the mental issues as well, because wearing masks, not being able to see what the teachers are doing, smiling, frowning, whatever, even other children, playing with other children. I mean, we are still running into the situation where we are being told, yes, the pandemic is practically over, but no, we're not ready to allow people to we're not allowing our children to be children. And I'm waiting for that to actually happen. And I think we're being overly cautious on this. And that's just me, because I see it in my son when he comes home and he's depressed. And it's not something that we've done what we can on our side, but he wants to play at home. He wants to play at school. He wants to do stuff. And it's like, we're telling him that we can't do it until the bad bugs are gone or the bad virus is gone. And he's honestly, he's feeling like the parents are to some extent frustrated. And I'm just more worried right now that we are running into where we're being overcautious instead of following, they say, the science. Because if everybody's saying that COVID is on the downturn, should we not actually return back to normal?
Thanks, Matthew, for your comments. Your concerns are duly noted. I think a lot of us are feeling that fatigue with the masks and whatnot. But, as I stated, right now, currently that's out of our hands as far as this is a state law right now that masks are still required within certain areas. I do think that we're going to see improvement, especially as vaccinations open up to the younger students. But like I said, I'm hopeful for the fall that we're going to see some big changes. And, you make some valid points. It's certainly more ideal. As a teacher myself, I can't wait to get rid of the mask. I'm vaccinated. I feel comfortable walking around the school without one. But again, it's not just me. It's everyone. And I do think you're going to see some changes. So I would just, hold tight. And like I said, you're probably not going to see this happen by the end of this year. But the fall, we may see some major changes. Dr. Clenchey, did you want to add anything before?
No, Matt, I think that was a great summary. I mean, we're all anxious, but we want to make sure we get it right. And we certainly don't want to go backwards. And I think, Massachusetts has done a wonderful job of getting control of this virus as much as possible at this point in time. Vaccinations were a game changer. And if we can, get approval to vaccinate younger children, I really believe we're going to be in a great spot next September.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Rich.
Thanks, Matthew. Okay. Next, we're going to move on to the financial report by Mr. Steve Mark.
Steve, you're muted.
Sorry, is that better? Can you hear me now? Sorry about that. Can't do two things at once, I guess. So the report is on the screen. As I've reported throughout the year, there are no surprises here. So we are on track for the end of the year, you can see on the screen, there's a little over $6 million left still in our budget. That will take us through the end of June. Our run rate is a little over $2 million a month. So that gets us down a little over 2 left. And then, as I reported before, we pay teachers over the summer. So we carry those funds forward into the summer to pay teachers through the end of August. And that's almost $1.8 million. So again, there's no surprises here. There's no good surprises, no bad surprises. We're in good shape financially. So I'd be more than glad to answer any questions if there are any.
Steve, my only question would just be transportation and busing. We're at 93%. Does that, do we pay ahead on those, or why did that one?
Yes, the bulk of that is paid well ahead. The sped transportation, we pay that in 2 installments through the year. We'll have some final invoices for our yellow bus transportation. But that's, we're on track for that as well.
Do you anticipate that going over budget?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Steve. All right. So the next part, we're going to move on to new business. We're going to talk about the mass recommendations for the CDC update. Dr. Clenchey will give his update on this. Dr. Clenchey.
Thanks, Matt. And the slide should be appearing any second. Or 2. There we go. Next slide, please. Thank you. On Monday, Governor Baker made several announcements, and one of the announcements was specific to schools and school districts and the relaxing of certain mitigation factors. The one that received a lot of attention is obviously mask wearing. The new recommendations include not having to wear masks when outdoors, even if distance cannot be maintained. Guidance applies to recess, physical education, youth sports, outdoor learning environments. Adults, though, must continue to wear masks outdoors if distancing can't be maintained. At this time, adults and students must continue to wear masks indoors, as we've already talked about. Athletics, as many of you know, this applies to athletics as well, and we already began to implement this yesterday in terms of our high school athletic program. It's important to note at this point in time, we really need to ensure that we talk to our children about the fact that we need to be understanding and respectful and kind when students may decide to continue to wear masks outside. There are various reasons why this may happen. It could be somebody is sick in their household. It could be grandparents that are medically fragile. So we have to be respectful of the fact that, and somebody mentioned it earlier this evening, that some people are going to be ready to jump into this decreased requirement for wearing masks, but others aren't. And again, as Dr. Herring pointed out, we're Kind School certified, and we're a Kind School district. And I would ask that all families have a conversation with their children and talk about the importance of understanding people's decisions and respecting those decisions. I've asked our administration and staff to do the same thing in school. This is not dissimilar to when we were asking people to wear masks. At a smaller scale, albeit, but it's still going to be equally difficult for some people to put their masks in their pocket. Next slide, please. Material sharing, as Katrina pointed out earlier this evening, the likelihood of transmission of COVID-19 surfaces allows us to once again be able to share classroom materials, items that we typically use for physical education, art supplies, etc. Shared objects no longer have to be cleaned or disinfected between use as well. Next slide. Surface and space cleaning recommendations are that because of the low likelihood of service transmission, schools now only need to clean high-touch surfaces, which includes door handles, bus seats, drinking fountains, and shared objects within the school and on-school transport vehicles once a day. I concur with the recommendation that has been given, but there's one part that I'm uncomfortable with. I really want to continue with our deep cleaning of each school building once a week until the end of the year. I think that's just a mitigation strategy that certainly creates a level of comfort. Certainly, in my opinion, I'm just not ready to let that go. So I would ask the school committee tonight to support the continued use of our misting machines for deep cleaning once a week in each school. And that is it for the changes. They're big changes, and as we've looked at the data, and Katrina did a great job tonight reviewing that data with us. It's time, in my opinion, it's time to move forward on this. But again, some families may not be ready to do so, and that's fine. This is voluntary. If you still want to wear a mask when you're going outside, for example, wear a mask.
Thanks, Dr. Clenchey. And I think, Katrina made a valid point earlier when she said, we've gone through a trauma. This has been a traumatic event for all of us, and we are all going to deal with it differently. Like I said, I myself am ecstatic at this news that my children will be able to go out and take the masks off outside. They feel safe doing so, but also being respectful of other people in the community who may be a little bit more hesitant. But I am really excited about this, and just correct me, this will go into effect tomorrow.
That would be my wish. I have a letter ready to push send on to all families if we decide to move forward with.
Okay, so we'll need a vote on that?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Questions or comments from the school committee?
I would love to be able to make the motion as my first meeting, but I don't know if this is the right time to do that, or do we have questions first?
You can make a motion, someone seconds, then we can discuss it. Yeah.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to implement the new guidelines for not wearing masks at recess and allowing the kids to share objects at school.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. This will be a roll call vote.
Well, can we discuss it first, Matt? Just for a second.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Jumping the gun.
This is my first meeting as chair, so back off.
You're doing a great job.
Discussion.
You're doing great.
Surprisingly enough, I have some questions. Is that all right?
That's odd, but go ahead.
Yeah, first time for everything. First of all, I'll just say this. I traded messages with a lot of folks today about this. I'm glad we waited these extra 2 days. I know some parents are frustrated with that. I can tell you as the parent of a daughter who relies very heavily on lip reading, that no one's gonna be happier to have mask off and easier communication than people in my family. But as a member of the school committee, I think it was appropriate for that we waited. We've spent an entire year debating these mitigation efforts, debating what's right for our kids and our system in public meeting, hearing from townspeople, having the town's elected officials make these decisions. And after a year of doing that, I was not frankly comfortable ceding that authority directly to the administration. I think this is something that And this year, it's something we should settle in this type of meeting where we can hear from people. We've had time to get emails from parents. I know some people are frustrated. And look, we can reasonably disagree about whether or not it was appropriate to wait 2 days or not. I think keeping the precedent of these decisions are made at this level is, I think it's appropriate. And so I'm glad we've had time for comments. We've gotten the emails and we'll hear from folks. I do have some questions though, just about what this means if we approve Jen's motion. Are there effects on contact tracing, Kelly, or Lynn?
I'm glad you asked that, Brad. I was actually going to mention that, but I had my internet is unstable flash across my screen. And I hope you heard the last comment that I made in terms of I have a letter ready to go tonight if this motion is passed. The commissioner and DPH before the commissioner has already stated that students, when they're outdoors and unmasked, will not have to quarantine if they were a close contact. We are fully expecting within the next couple of days confirmation that contact tracing will not have to be done in environments where students are unmasked. I'm pretty confident that's going to happen in the next couple of days.
That's great to hear because I was afraid that DESE would give us guidance. DESE is kind of acted on its own a lot this year, and they would give us guidance that didn't match what DPH was going to do, and that would just get us in a mess. So that's very good to hear if we're confident they're right. The second question, just a clarification, we got some emails about this. We're counting playground equipment as physical education material sharing. Are playgrounds
Yes.
part of that? Is that how it is? Does this affect the guidance? Does this guidance will it affect how like the apparatus out there?
We're decreasing those mitigation factors as well. So I mean, this I guess had a lot more in it, and there were 3 various areas that were a focus. But again, with the evidence that surface transmission is not a concern anymore, it opens up playgrounds as well.
Right. My final question is just a comment in support of your desire to keep the deep cleaning. I do that I think there's no harm. We've got the equipment. It's probably minimal cost. But also, I think it's contractual. I think that's something that we negotiate with the LEA that we would continue doing that. And maybe I'm remembering the contract wrong, but it seems like that's something that we're obligated to do unless we renegotiate it, unless I just think we should do it and that we may have to do it.
I just feel, Brad, it's the right thing to do.
I agree. Thank you.
You're muted, Matt.
Comment or question? Oh.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions before we move on to a vote?
No, Brad asked my questions.
Do you have an attendee question?
I have a question or a comment actually. I just kind of wanted to raise the concern that respectfully, Brad, I disagree. I think that we probably should have and could have been ready to implement this on Tuesday morning as some other districts did. We've said it many times tonight. If you want to continue to wear a mask outside, that's perfectly fine. And in fact, I think it's probably perfectly normal and we'll probably continue to see that. And it's just to be clear, it's, very comfortable with the administration here. Kelly reached out, was ready to go. The school committee felt like we needed a 3-day pause. And I just felt like it was unnecessary. And I raised that concern because we're likely going to gradually lessen additional safety protocols and get back to maybe not even the new normal, but like the old normal. And I would just ask that we don't end up in a situation where we have to wait to have a meeting to implement what Governor Baker is allowing us to do. I mean, other districts dropped the mask outside on Tuesday morning. In fact, we allowed our track team to run track yesterday, but then kids still were at recess today with a mask. So a bit of mixed messaging. And then my only comment or I guess question would be the quarantining thing. You brought it up, Brad. So you start to wonder what's going on here because the kids don't need to wear masks outside anymore. In fact, if they're less than a 0 distance, they're not considered close contacts. But Baker's asking vaccinated adults in school buildings to remain masked. So it's kind of like, you know, what's going on? Are we picking and choosing which science we want to follow here? But I'm all for obviously dropping the masks outdoors on the students as soon as possible. I hope, you know, someday soon, vaccinated adults can be taking their masks off. And then once the vaccines roll all the way around to the children, that we can just get back to the old normal. So that's just my only comments. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Justin. I would just say, yeah, I think it's some disagreement among the board is a healthy thing. It makes us air issues and get ideas out there. So I appreciate your comments. I think, you know, as chair, I'd like to have a lot of transparency with the community. I felt comfortable with the 3 days, but that was me. And I'd like to stick to a process that we have. But, you know, I do see your concerns. And as far as the after school sports, you know, kids choose or choose not to participate in sports. So I felt we could make an exception there and tell them to go right ahead. I think, you know, we knew Tuesday that we were going to go ahead with this, but I just wanted to take the opportunity to inform the community and put those at ease who might have concerns. Again, that's how I'd like to go forward. But again, I understand people's frustration about waiting 3 days, but after 15 months, I thought maybe we could just hold on and inform the community. All right. Do we have a question from the audience member?
Yes. John Kay, please state your name, your street, and your question, please. John, you're muted, and there you go.
Yeah, John Kurzwick, 171 Hartwell. First of all, congratulations to Matt Hunt and Justin and Jen Gold on you know, their new positions on the board. But I did want to weigh in on this. I do support dropping the masks at recess, but you know, I don't think it goes far enough. Just to let you guys know, and I think there's parents out there that may have different opinions than me, but the European CDC, at least since December, has recommended primary school students not wear masks in school. And that's been their recommendation since at least December. You can go on their website, you can see what they have there. So any parent that's afraid of the kids running around out at recess, just let you know that there are other jurisdictions that are in school without masks. So I think this is a low risk move. Secondly, the UK just announced May 17th, all secondary school students will no longer be required to wear masks in school. And if this wasn't a comedy show, Texas just announced that they're going to start fining people if they have people wearing masks in school. So, you know, I understand that in a way, the school administration and the board, you kind of have to go with, you know, what the authorities in our state are saying. But I think another caller used the word frustrated. That I would put myself in that category. To see other jurisdictions find a way to have their students in school without masks, but yet somehow in the great state of Massachusetts, you know, we just can't seem to get it to work. But I understand it's a difficult position, and this is, to me, this is a victory, and I appreciate the board, you know, voting in this way. So thank you very much.
Thanks, John, for your comments. And again, duly noted. I think your feelings are a lot of people's feelings. And like I said, for myself as a teacher, I can't wait to get rid of the mask. I was in school yesterday and it was, you know, no air conditioning in parts of the building. It was hot. I want to take it off. So I definitely feel your frustration. But I just ask you again to hold out, you know, a little longer. I have a lot of hope for the fall. I think we're going to see some major changes.
Yeah, Mr. Hunt, I mean, it does feel a little punitive sometimes when I see some of the mask policies that come out. It does feel punitive. But I understand the position that the school is in and the school board's in and the administration's in, but I appreciate you guys doing the best you can to free things up.
Well, thank you. And I think, like I said, I think we're going to get there hopefully sooner rather than later. So
Thank you. Lynn Snow would like to speak, Matt.
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure it was clarified that a real big factor of holding off too was we did receive the information about relaxing the mask guidance, but there was an addendum that came out specifically related to contact tracing that we really did need to wait for, because in surveying the schools, looking at the fact that there are 2 classes out at recess together, that's approximately 50 students that if we needed to contact trace for, our nurses would have needed to make 50 calls to families. So it was great that we waited until the addendum came out so that we knew that the students, one, wouldn't have to quarantine, but now during the commissioner's call, knowing that we also will not have to actually contact trace in that case is really important. So I think it was great that we waited those couple days in the interest of our nursing staff and understanding what the implications could have been for the bandwidth and what they would have needed to do.
Thanks for clarifying that, Lynn. I know when you and I talked, I think with Dr. Clinchy, maybe on Monday or Tuesday, that was how you explained it to me, is that if we had a positive case on a playground under the guidelines that were existing on Tuesday, then we might have to quarantine both classes. So yeah, I'm glad that's not the case, and I'm glad we didn't have to implement that policy.
if there's no other questions, I can move on to a vote. All right, this is a roll call vote. And again, state your full name. Jen Gold.
Jen Gold votes yes.
Timlin Rassius.
Timlin Rassius, yes.
Justin McCarthy.
Justin McCarthy, yes.
Brad Austin.
Austin, yes.
And Matt Hunt votes yes as well. So tomorrow, Dr. French, I'd like to see that go out tonight so the families know that their kids will no longer be required to wear masks outside. Do we need to do a separate vote about the deep cleaning, or is that included in it? Or
No, it doesn't require a vote. It's operational anyway, but I just wanted to present a case tonight. And it sounds like everybody understands why we want to continue to do it. So that's great.
Great. Thank you. Okay. And the last item on the agenda is discussion regarding summer learning academics.
Thanks, Matt. This topic has consumed the leadership team and myself beyond the leadership team for a while. And before I speak to this, I want to give our Director of Teaching and Learning, Mrs. Steele, an opportunity to go through a few points that we created, and then I'll come in at the tail end and do a summary.
Thank you, Dr. Clinchy and Chairman Hunt. So would like to share some thoughts on summer programming for the possibility of it for this upcoming summer. So as we all are very aware, our students have been through a lot this year. So on top of the typical transitions that happen every year from grade to grade, as well as for some of our students from school to school. And then additionally, some of our students entering the education realm for the first time. On top of those transitions, they had to also learn, for a lot of our students, a new way of learning. And so it was the mix of the in-person and the remote learning, or learning to be fully remote. And when in person, they had to abide by these strict guidelines of physical distancing, mask wearing, and hand hygiene, right? With all of that said, our students have continued to make academic progress. So in looking at MAP growth data, which we've discussed throughout this year, we can see a couple of really important points that I want to share with everyone right now. So the first, when we speak about the MAP growth data, The last year and this year, at this point in time, we have fall and winter data. The spring has not yet been completed. Our students are currently doing the process of spring map testing right now. Last year, we did not have spring data because of the closures. So we don't have that data from last year. So what's interesting is that we're able to really compare fall to fall, winter to winter between this year and last year. So when we do that, if we're looking specifically at the winter 2021 data this school year, we see that all grade levels, the achievement is above where the achievement was in the winter of 2020 in reading. So just winter of 2020 was pre-pandemic. Our students this year were above the achievement level of where they were pre-pandemic a year ago. A second important point to point out with regards to the map growth data. With regards to math specifically, the winter 2021, again, this school year, almost all of our students grade levels, the achievement is above where it was during the winter of 2020 in math. So with that, we can see that our students are achieving at strong and high levels. And the data is showing that. So a third point here is that when we look at map data, we look at achievement, like I just shared two very important achievement notes with you, but we also look at growth. And the growth is equally as important as the achievement when we look at this data. And this year, speaking of growth, our students are demonstrating typical to actually significant growth that we can see from our map growth data. Going back to the achievement, we need the growth to have the achievement, right? So when we're looking at achievement of all of our grade levels are achieving within one standard deviation and not significantly different from the previous 4 years of map growth data. So that includes pre-pandemic full year map growth data. And actually, we were really pleased to see that this year, 5 of our 14 grade levels actually achieved equal or above those previous year's achievement levels, which is quite impressive. So in order to have all of this achievement, right? All of it, the achievement can be compensated for within the next year to 2 years if it is needed. And that achievement, the compensation is possible because of the student growth that we're seeing. So in order to maintain that student growth, we really need to consider Maslow before Bloom, right? So Maslow is those the basic needs of our students, before we can have them thinking about Bloom's taxonomy, the higher order thinking, the critical thinking. So we need to take care of basic measures before we can take care of the others. So if we're taking care of that growth, we're going to be able to take care of the achievement. And I think a lot of this data, which really is striking, also demonstrates the responsiveness by our teachers, by our educators this year, who were able to identify and support our students' immediate needs and challenges. So they've been given some shout outs tonight by a variety of people, and I think they deserve another one, that they were very responsive, and that shines through in the map growth data that we've been able to see so far. So furthermore, to speak a little anecdotally, in having conversations with our staff, we're also able to see that the achievement, the growth is happening at the classroom level as well, with classroom assessments and with benchmark assessments. So for example, with Acadience and with the benchmark assessment system, which is through Fontes and Pinnell. So really, all of this achievement and this progress and this growth that we're seeing is possible and has been possible all year because our students have had access to high quality. It has looked different, yes. We have seen it remotely. We have seen it in a hybrid format, right? It's looked different, but it is high quality teaching and learning that is happening this year. And specifically, our students have had the opportunity of some level of in-person learning since the very first day of school in September. While we have all wanted more in-person learning throughout the entire year, we have to remember that there were certain safety protocols in place that inhibited this ability. Speaking of safety protocols, our students and staff worked incredibly hard this year to make sure they abided by those safety protocols that were in place in order to keep themselves, each other, and everyone in the community safe. While they were abiding by these safety protocols, they were able to continue to make adequate and significant academic progress, therefore allowing the kids to be kids this summer. So students and staff can have the summer to spend quality time with family and friends, to be able to rest and recharge. And actually, knowing the staff quite well, I know that they're actually going to also use this summer to prepare for the upcoming school year. And it's important to keep in mind that last summer, a good majority of the summer, our staff was fully consumed by preparing for this school year and the reopening that needed to take place. So it's in having the summer that our students and staff will come back refreshed, recharged, and ready to go. And like all school year beginnings, we do a student needs assessment. It's not anything new. It's not anything we're doing because of the pandemic. We do it on a yearly basis. And that student needs assessment indicates to us as educators of your children where our students are, and we will always meet your children where they are. We will always see them where they are and guide them forward in their educational journey, academically, emotionally, and socially. So the big reason why, or I would say maybe a large reason as to why we're having this conversation tonight is because that on April 30th, Governor Baker made an announcement about many opportunities with regards to federal funding, federal and state funding that was going to become available. So some of this has come out, some of it has actually yet to come out, so we don't necessarily have all the details yet. As of right now, looking at what is available and out, we would likely be eligible for potentially one funding opportunity. And so while these funding opportunities have been made available to districts across the state, the intention of the funding is to support districts across the Commonwealth that were not able to knowingly meet the needs of their students this year due to COVID. The real takeaway that I'm trying to hit home here is that our students have made this school year typical progress during a very unique, challenging year. And a summer filled with play, friends, and family is developmentally appropriate for our students. And our students, having that summer, it puts them in the best place to be able to start a new school year, the school year 21-22, ready to learn and go. So Dr. Clunchy, I'll pass it back over to you if you want to add more to that.
Thank you, Mrs. Steele. A few weeks ago, we all shared the same concern, and that concern was focused on student, staff, and family wellness during the pandemic. Not much has changed since we've had that conversation. You know for certain that I'm an academic at heart, and I've spent many years moving schools and districts forward. And with the implementation of MAP testing, which is an adaptive test in our district for a number of years, we have learning profiles for every student in grades 2 through 8. This year, for the first time, we expanded it to some of our high school classes as well. That gives us information that most districts don't have. And it's very valuable information. It's instant, and teachers can use that information to tailor their instruction to not only meet student needs, but also acknowledge the learning that's happening in their respective classrooms. It's typical that during the summer months, there's a bit of learning slippage, I'm going to call it. And our teachers are aware of that, and they're trained to deal with that. So we don't start the school year as educators and assume that everything that was taught to our students is still fresh in their minds, because that's not the case. So our teachers more correctly have those skill sets to deal with these things. Grants, it really depends on how grants are structured, and we still don't have a lot of information on this grant as to whether it would be allocated according to Title I numbers or free and reduced numbers in our district. If that's the case, we would receive very little money or none at all. We've applied for a number of grants with those conditions, and we're unsuccessful because there are needier districts that need that money to provide remediation to students that are in dire need of having that help. This is tough for me because I do see an opportunity as well, but I really feel, and it's certainly backed by a number of articles I've read lately, that our students need time to be in an unstructured environment, play, rebuild, re-energize, and come to school in September ready and anxious to be back to school. I certainly don't want to do anything to tip that balance. And I'm gonna just throw my own personal experience in, and I'm sure some of you may share some of it. There are many people in our community, including myself, that have not been able to see family for over a year. People are looking forward to developing more of a normalcy in terms of visiting family and friends. And I think that's an important part of rebuilding during the pandemic. We all know that it's important for our students and our staff to have their needs taken care of before we can expect them, in our students' case, learn, and in our teachers' or educators' case, be excited and raring to go and do all the wonderful things that they do in the classroom. As a superintendent, there are many things that I take a look at within a district that some of you probably don't even know about, and attendance is one of them. Attendance is a prime indicator, staff attendance, in terms of how well things are going, in terms of stress or staff stress levels. I mean, it's common sense. The more stressed you are, the more prone you are to becoming ill. So, having said that, I did pencil out a possible cost analysis if we were to offer 10 days of some type of instruction. It would be at current grade level because we would be looking for voids. It would come to around $45,000, and that's not including all costs. We would want a diverse enrollment, and by doing that, we could only take in, at the most, 25 students per grade. And one of the caveats to that is that the only way it would be successful is that if every single educator that was involved in that program was from our district. To go outside our district would reverse any gains, any possible gains that we could expect. Having talked to a number of superintendents in Massachusetts, and even talking to our staff, and Mrs. Steele has had an opportunity to talk to ECC and SCC, they have indicated to us that they really need this summer to re-energize and revitalize to start the next school year. Superintendents have indicated to me, the ones that have started to move ahead to test the waters, that they're having difficulty getting staff to run these programs. And I know I've talked to some special education directors, et cetera, who are also having trouble staffing their ESY programs, which are mandatory programs for students with accommodations that are identified as needing summer services. So you know me well enough to know that if we're going to jump into the water, I want to make sure that we're set up for success. And another comment I want to make is as a superintendent, I need to ensure that every dollar we spend reaches as many students as we can. By having 25% or less able to take part in a 10-day program could take away some money that could be very valuable when we do an analysis of student learning and social and emotional learning in the fall. And we do that every year. And if we find areas that need to be addressed, with the ESSER 3 grant, for example, we could bring in staff to address those identified areas. And again, I'm going to go back to map testing. We use map testing 3 times a year. So we capture where our students are at 3 times a year. And I'm not even talking about teacher assessments. So we have a lot of good data to use. And you know, I really feel at this point in time, we would be far better served to have some money to utilize during the regular school year when we identify these needs to provide those extra services that our students may need. And I'm going to emphasize every single student that needs those services should be able to have those services in an equitable manner. My recommendation is a tough one to make tonight because I really struggled with deciding what was best, but after a lot of conversation with the leadership team and some of my own reflection, I feel confident in making that recommendation to you this evening.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Clenchey and Ms. Steele. Any comments or questions from the school committee? Oh, Brad.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Kelly and Beth. I know we traded some messages about this during the week, and this I appreciate the comprehensiveness of this presentation. First of all, Beth, it's just great to hear these data about the map testing. It's what a testament to our students and to our teachers that if we're doing at grade level or at the standard or better in many cases in this year of all years, that's a lot of good and hard work being done by a lot of people in the district. So I appreciate you sharing that. I also really appreciate the way you phrased it, Maslow above Bloom. That's such a powerful way to say it. We got some emails from some folks talking about how, same thing you're saying, Kelly, about the need to let kids be kids this summer and to let parents not worry about, am I missing this opportunity? I'm missing this opportunity, you know, the kind of stress to kind of keep up and just to breathe, preferably without a mask, and decompress a little bit. That said, it's, you know, when I first started reading about these and why I was hearing from people and writing to you, because when you hear, hey, there's $70 million to these programs, that, you know, it's also really tough to turn down what seemed like free money in my first reading to offer this wide range of programs to our students. If you're telling me that it's not that your guess is that we would be getting, was it 15-20% if it's based on title, is that so? If whatever it costs our program, we might get reimbursed for a small percentage of, is that fair?
I think that would be a fair assessment. We're still waiting for more criteria to.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the other thing. So I even if you're recommending that we do support this, I'd want to know what the numbers are before we could vote to support it. Just what are we committing to it? It's while we're hearing from some families saying that, you know, just let our kids be kids. We're also hearing some families saying that they are worried about these statistics, this aggregate kind of achievement may not reflect what they're seeing in their house or the anxieties they're feeling in their house, both social, emotional, and educational. And so it's you know, Kelly, I feel you. It's tough to say to those people that we're not going to pursue this, even if it was just marginal support from the state and not the 70 million we thought. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
Quick question or comment. Is this something that Kelly, that you're asking us to make a decision on this evening, or is this time sensitive?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. And when Brad and I had a conversation, I said to him, the grant is somewhat irrelevant at this point in time, because if we decide to do anything, we need to start this process yesterday. And in order to develop a program of the magnitude, even for 10 half days or 10 days, is going to take a lot of work. And we need to make sure that we have some staff in place. And I'm going to reemphasize it needs to be our staff, or it won't be nearly as effective as it should be. And I've thought about a number of scenarios, and when I looked at the map test results, though, I kind of put some of those thoughts, or most of those thoughts, to the side, because we did exactly what we were hoping to do in terms of student achievement. So I guess I'm giving you a long answer, but these programs take a lot of time and thought to organize. It's not just putting an educator in a classroom. We have to decide exactly what we're going to do in that time period. And then they need to have the tools to assess 25 students out of 100, 130 students that may be eligible in terms of what those needs are. And that's not going to happen overnight. One thing that I didn't mention, Justin, and I think I need to now, is the fact that we can't house all kids, and I said it before, is very concerning to me in terms of equity. And I know I could go to the other side of the fence on this and say, well, we provide services to students that need services, and not everybody gets those services. But we do have an ESY program that is designed for that as well. So I hope that helps, Brad, or Justin. I hope that helps.
Yeah, a little bit. It does. Mike, I guess I'm wondering is what would we expect the participation to be? Kids need to be kids. That's a big part of the job. There's a lot of development that takes place just outside of school. It makes them great people. But I hear what you're saying. It doesn't seem equitable, but I think there's a significant portion of the population that would feel like, hey, the school year was successful. My child's moved along perfectly fine. I'm not interested in this. But then there probably is a subset would say, this is exactly what my kid needs. This has been a challenging year, 10 half days. If this was offered, this would be something that I would want my student, my child to participate in. So I guess I just kind of need more information on it.
Yeah, Kelly, I think I would concur with Justin as far as, I feel like if you're saying that the process should have began before to get staffing and get a curriculum going, I do see the difficulties with it. I know for myself, I run a summer program in Waltham, and trying to get teachers within the school that want to work in the summer is almost impossible this year, more so than any other year that I've ever faced, just because teachers need the time off. Parents are opting kids out of the programs that I run because they need the time off. So I guess we're just looking for a little bit more direction on what you'd like for us to do, whether take a vote tonight or hold off and get some more information.
Well, I mean, I guess ideally I would like to move forward with addressing every child's needs in the fall. I mean, I really, that's the point I'm at now at this point. I'd like Lynn to add a few comments as well, because she also comes through a lens of being our special education director that's responsible for an ESY compulsory program every year, and I think it would be helpful to hear from her as well.
Sure. I can certainly speak to being pleased as Beth and I reviewed the map data. I was very pleased to see the growth that the students have made. Obviously, when we're talking about special education, we're talking about our students who are identified with a disability who require special education services. I can say that our ESY program, we started planning it in February, and we're still faced with challenges with staffing, and our positions for the first time. And historically, I've had to get the information from Dr. Clenchey, but we generally don't have to look outside of Littleton to staff our ESY program, and we have had to do that this year. I'm still seeking staff for a number of positions, and really, this ESY is a required program. We have to offer these services. We've expanded and are providing more ESY programming than we have in previous years under COVID compensatory services, under additional needs that students are exhibiting, and obviously that needs to be the priority. And I understand what Dr. Clenchey is saying too, is that it's most important that our students are being taught by Littleton staff because they know them the best. That being said, we sometimes do need to look outside. But given that we're having to look outside for our required ESY programs, I certainly would echo everyone else's sentiments about wanting to really focus and focus our efforts onto the fall. Because I will just, as an aside and anecdotally, sometimes even with our ESY, even with special ed ESY programs, attendance is an issue. On that rainy day, you're gonna have full attendance. When it's that sunny day that mom and dad decide they're gonna take a day off and take a beach day, you're not going to have full attendance that day. So I think we really need to consider what the priorities are and what are our resources going to be able to do for us come the fall, and are we going to be able to really capture all of the students, because we also need to be realistic and understand that sometimes our most at-risk vulnerable students are the ones that are going to be dragging their feet and not wanting to go to the summer program offerings that it's going to be more academic. So, what is the priority that we need to focus on?
Thanks, Lynn. And that's exactly what I'm dealing with. Like I said, I run an ESY program in Waltham. And for the first time in probably 10 years, I'm going to have to seek outside vendors because we don't even have applicants from outside. So it's a really tough situation the schools are in. And I do hear what you're saying as far as perhaps the best route is to go put what money we do get towards the fall, where it'll be equally distributed among all students. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think, I mean, I definitely would be saying, what are we going to be able to do with the ESSER 3 grant to get the most bang for our buck?
If I could jump in also and just say that the Parks and maybe I'm getting an early start on my new role as liaison for Parks and Rec, but the Parks and Rec department in our town has a really robust offering that's been going on for, I think, at least 10 years, if not longer, maybe more, around mostly STEM classes, but it's pretty robust and for all ages. And I know that there are financial aid options available throughout the summer. So that's a program that's in place that's optional, obviously, for parents and kids who want to take advantage of it. We don't necessarily have to recreate the wheel or create something new. So keeping that in mind is, as another option for kids that want more enrichment throughout the summer, that's there for them.
Yeah, and maybe, Jen, that's a great idea. Whatever mechanism we have to kind of amplify and share news about scholarship programs or how we can help people. Because look, it's a fee-based program is not the same as what this program would be. And so there are equity issues there as well. Some people with families with more resources and disposable income will have more access to them. That's just the way our society works, but they'll have access to more opportunities than those who are stretched a little thinner right now. I guess here's the way I'm listening to this. The data shows progress. We don't have enough info on the grants and the funding available, but we'd have to get started immediately planning. We're concerned about staffing. And that there's the equity argument and need to be responsive in the fall. I guess I would just say is, look, if we're not going to be able to staff it and we don't know if these grants would even come to us, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation if there weren't that $70 million at the headline of the of the Baker administration's press release. But I would say, and I don't know if this is just my personal thoughts, is that I hope that we can be as inclusive or as inviting or as, cast a net maybe a little wider for ESY this summer than other summers. If there are families out there who think, look, she needs a little more help, and I hope that we can listen to those families and try to work with them to support them within our existing programs. That's just I'm not asking for necessarily a response. I just hope we can help some of these families out, because what we've heard from some of them, and there's real anguish out there.
I can actually speak to that, because what DESE required that we do was have these COVID compensatory service meetings back in December. It's a fluid situation, and sometimes the teams didn't have enough data to really make those determinations in December. So I have encouraged teams that if they need to reconsider, they can always come back to the table and they can revisit that. We're definitely at the end of that phase, considering we're so close to the end of the school year, but there absolutely have been teams and families that have requested reconsideration of ESY programming, or increasing ESY off services for students that meet the criteria.
That's great. And I hope we enter those conversations really with an open mind and receptive to kind of the family's perception of things too. Thank you.
And I will make it a point to sit down with the Park and Rec director and talk about scholarships. I have a few connections as well that I can offer to maybe increase that amount of money.
That's great.
Okay. Dr. Clenchey, so bear with me. Are we just giving you direction now, or do you want us to vote on this?
It's really, I say this cautiously because, this year we kind of turned roles of school committee and administration, not upside down, but we've shared more roles than Ed Reform of 93 states. But that's great. We needed to do it, but it is really operational. What I really needed is your feedback tonight. I want to make sure that and I know you do, and families especially, is we take these things very seriously, and we want all students to succeed. And as I said at the beginning of this conversation, this was a tough decision, but I know it's the right decision with the limited funds that we have. We don't have the funds to go hire 3 reading specialists or 3 math specialists and then bring in support for social and emotional learning. We have limited funds, and I just want to make sure those funds are able to help as many students as we can.
All right, so I think we're comfortable with you going forward in using it for the fall, and just like Brad said, being cognizant of families that may need some extra help this summer would be great. I think we're good unless anyone else has any more input. Okay, and then we'll move on to the second opportunity for anyone with any questions or comments for the school committee, interested citizens.
We do not have any raised hands.
Okay.
Oh, we do have one.
Oh, okay.
We just have one.
Go for it.
One moment. Jennifer Klein, please state your name, your street, and your question, please. Jennifer? Jennifer?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, there you go.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'm Jennifer Klein. I live at 2 Dogwood Road. And I'm just, I was one of the people who felt like we could have moved quicker on taking off the masks as soon as we heard. And given Biden had said last week that the CDC guidelines had been updated, and Baker said, let's wait. And then we said, let's wait some more until we met. I think we all agree the time is going to come where we're talking about, and the government is giving us approval to move forward with no masks indoors. And I'm just wondering if you all see it as pressing to have a quick meeting about it in front of everybody, an emergency meeting. I, for me, feel like it is emergency worthy to be having that conversation quickly, to be nimble, to be quick, to be thinking about what's best for the students. And we've had enough time to think about this. And obviously we don't know when that is going to happen. I know some people had mentioned probably the fall, but it's been kind of all over the place. I think people were surprised with the CDC guidelines. So, I don't know what Governor Baker's going to do, but I'm wondering if you all would consider having a conversation as soon as we hear what the governor decides when he has it, so that we can all, meet together quicker than waiting until the next school committee. Would you be willing to do that when we hear about indoor masks?
Thanks, Jennifer, for your question. One thing I'll just say, and I'll turn it over to Kelly because he understands it a little bit better than I do. This is my first night as chair, so bear with me. We couldn't do it in this case for one reason, because we weren't organized yet, so we had to reorganize. It was just really bad timing in that regard. And personally, I know myself and other school committee members that would be open to having an emergency meeting. Whether it qualifies for it, that's a question for Dr. Clenchey.
Thanks, Matt. First of all, open meeting law really is our guidance in this area. And I consulted with our district attorney just to verify that things hadn't changed in terms of my own understanding. These kinds of things do not qualify under emergency meeting law at all. So we would not have been able to meet without giving 48 hours of posted notice to do so. That's just the way the law is, and thank goodness we had a meeting this week. And I do know that people were anxious to move forward, but I'm going to go back to what Ms. Snow said as well. When we first heard about this, and by the way, we had no idea coming down the way it did. In fact, I think the commissioner found out Sunday, and it takes time. And usually when changes like this are put in place by any official, they give some time to implement in a week's notice, 2 weeks notice. And this was something immediate. Quite frankly, this is the first time I've seen this in my entire career. And it was a bit troubling to me as a leader. Having said that, we will do everything that we can if we're given the information to make sure we have a meeting, but we need that kind of communication in order for us to be able to do that. And we had no idea. Monday when that announcement was made, there was no indication at the superintendent level that was going to happen. So it really put us all in a bit of a tailspin. And Matt can attest to this. There are many districts out there that are weighing in on this, and they're not going to get back to making a decision until the tail end of next week as well. I mean, we hear about the ones that implemented the day after, but there are many districts out there that have not even set a date at this point in time, or to make a decision as to what direction they're going to take.
Brad?
Yeah. So to Jen's point, I think that, frankly, I'd forgotten we were operating without a chair. If we had decided we wanted to meet immediately, then I think the earliest we could have met would have been Wednesday night, because we had to post. If we could have post on Monday afternoon to 48 hours to get on Wednesday nights, that would have saved us a day. We couldn't talk as a committee without that meeting, because open meeting laws, and Mike Fontanello would come from the golf course and hit us with his putter if we tried to do that. I think but also to Jen's point is that, we don't know when the next guidance will come down. If it's in the fall, then I think we'll be absolutely ready for it. We'll be prepared for scenarios. If it's, just randomly next Monday, as Kelly suggested, this happened, then we wouldn't be prepared for it. I think going back to what I said earlier is that I do think it's important that this body maintains its authority over making these kind of decisions. I think we should be the townspeople, the citizens should have the say here, and not just the administration, which is not trying to defend the administration. I just think that's the way it should be. The way to address that, Jen, and I don't know how this works, is if we were to consider a motion and to vote that say that if DESE were to do this, then we authorize the superintendent to act immediately. I think that's the way to allow us to be nimble, but also to just keep the authority in this body's hands, where I think it belongs during a pandemic year.
Yeah, I had that same idea, Brad, as far as giving a preemptive strike capability to the administration. Dr. Clenchey, is that something that we could look at in the future?
We could. I mean, what we need to be confident of, if we're going to do that, and I fully agree with what Brad said. That during this pandemic, it was imperative that we took the time to have these meetings and solicit public input and have a good discussion about what is best for our children in this community. And I would never want to not do that. It was the only way to go, and we held true to our philosophy. There could be an opportunity for that, but we would have to be really sure that the data that we were looking at wasn't going to change on us. And to be quite frank, CDC wasn't jumping up and down about this latest change. In fact, they put an article out this week and said, we really aren't sure whether schools should do this because of the time it would take to put processes in place. So we're not getting constant, or that's not the right word I'm going to use, but I guess we don't get constant information, but we get divergent information from experts. And that's been happening all year. And thank goodness we have Katrina on board with this, because as a superintendent, I rely on Katrina's expertise to help me work through these situations. And she's helped all of us in these situations so that we can make the best decisions that we can to keep our students and staff safe. And we need to continue to do that. But if vaccinations continue to roll out, they encompass younger age groups, I think in the summertime, you may be ready, and I may be ready to say, yeah, this is a good time to maybe make that statement. But we have to be as sure as we can be before we do that. We don't want to be making any mistakes or missteps.
Thanks, Dr. Clenchey. Justin, you had something to say?
Yeah, I'll just add, Jennifer, your question was, would we be willing to meet? And I think all five of us, of course, would be willing to meet as soon as possible, which is posting 48 hours. But to the point being made of giving Dr. Clenchey sort of the authority to side or roll with the state's decision. I mean, we sort of complained all fall and winter that we didn't have any direction or leadership federally or at the state level, and now we're getting it. And then we want to take a couple days to think about it. I mean, we don't necessarily need to be the authority on the kids wearing masks at recess or gym outside. Bakers decide. We're in a conservative state in Massachusetts as it relates to COVID safety protocols. And if Baker's saying it's okay at this point, I'm good with Dr. Clenchey rolling out a memo the minute we hear from it. So maybe all five of us don't feel that way, but I think we can get a little bit more efficient with our return to normalcy here. So that's all I'll add.
Thanks, Justin. Duly noted. Jennifer, anything else you want to add before we take away your talking permission?
Yeah, I just want to thank you all for being here so late. I've been on the call since 7 with you all, and I really feel like it was a great discussion. I do always look forward to Katrina's graphs and her presentation. I really love from the very beginning, how she outlined, you know, the area, not just Littleton, but the bordering towns, and then 495. And just, you know, thinking about the past year, you know, when we closed down schools, we all thought that that would be, the kids would be super spreaders in those schools. And as we follow the science and learn more day by day, I had read the statistics that the number of children who died in my children's ages, which is 3 to 5, is only 75 out of, you know, the 500,000 people who have passed in America. And while, you know, it's a horrible number, and I wish that didn't happen or any of this, statistically speaking, it does give me confidence that we can return to normal in the schools. And like you guys said, we really need to be respectful of everybody's opinions. So, you know, thinking about what different people want for their families, respecting that some people want to wear masks, some people don't. And I guess I just don't want us to not also celebrate for the people who are ready to celebrate. And I'd love to see us all kind of meet before the end of the school year with upcoming school boards. I know you had mentioned that we might postpone it until next year, but you know, you guys have done a tremendous job, and we need to be shaking hands, hugging, getting back to some normalcy, and just, you know, it seems to be what the top down is saying as well. So I want to thank you for your time. And again, I just reiterate that I do think when we do hear about the indoor masks, I hope we would move as quickly as possible.
Thanks, Jennifer, as do I. You know, and I fully concur on the return to some live meetings. And I think I'm actually the only one on the school committee who actually presented in it, who actually participated in live meetings at the police station. Everyone else has come on board since we've gone fully remote. I will say the one thing I don't miss is that at the end of the meeting, we would have to put back the room to how the police station wanted it. And it was up to the school committee members. Michelle Kane, she'd be out the door. You wouldn't see John Harrington anywhere. It was just us school committee members, and we had to do it. And it was a pain. But other than that, I'm happy to get back to in person.
Hey, don't throw me under the bus, Matt. I was there with you guys.
I know you were there, Kelly, but then notice I didn't mention your name.
I'll help next time we're back in person.
All right.
Matt, I was always very grateful that you guys would put the room back.
I over dramatize. At least that's what my wife says. Okay. So that brings us to subcommittee reports, PMBC.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Policy.
Brad, you want me to?
Yes.
I'll talk. Seeing Brad's been asking all my questions. No, policy. We met this past Tuesday. We have listed, we are going to start going through the policies. We found an old email that Daryl had sent us back last year, but we kind of got in the strewn of everything from all the emails that we were receiving this past year. So yeah, we're going to start going through policies, and we'll probably have 3 the next meeting to go through a first reading.
Thank you. And budget?
Yep. Jen and I have got a quick 30-minute presentation. If you could bring the slides up. Just kidding. Nothing to report. We will schedule some meetings shortly and get Jen introduced to the budget. So thanks.
Excellent. We look forward to that. And I think this is going to be a great committee. So again, congratulations to Jen and Justin on winning their races. I think it's going to be a great year. So without any further ado, what do you want, Brad?
I want to talk about CPAC.
Oh, it's not on the.
I know.
We need to put that on the agenda.
I got to put it on the agenda. I thought I was good.
I'm really shy about raising my hand, and I don't want to. No. Matt, I've got some great news for you. CPAC's going to do a newsletter in the next several weeks. So we'll get to you by the end of the year. But more importantly, for the parents, one of the things the CPAC people are organizing is we want to do a meet and greet for parents at the different school levels. So lower elementary and middle school and high school together. A meet and greet where parents can talk to each other, but they can also talk to their liaisons. So we can start having CPAC really function and getting parents in conversation with each other and talking about how we can leverage our collective wisdom and use that as in a relationship with the district, answer questions, talk about, figuring out how we can work as a great. So that's going to be on June 8th at 7 o'clock through Google Meets, and we'll get the information out there. There's going to be, those are for the people who are in district. There's also going to be one on June 10th. We're going to meet with the Lynn Snow and the out of district placement liaison on June 10th. And then June 15th, there's going to be a business meeting as well. So CPAC's busy.
Awesome. Sounds like we've got some great things on the horizon. We do not require an executive session tonight, so I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Can I ask one more question of Steve, Mark?
Yeah.
Steve, do we have a payroll processing date yet for that COVID stipend that was approved last meeting, which I think was probably like 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, I believe it's going to be on not this Friday paycheck, but the one after that. I don't remember the date. So early June.
Excellent. How's bus registration going?
It's going. The last time I looked, which was this morning, we had, I think, close to 350 or 400 students registered through the online process. There are, because this is a brand new system we just developed, there are a few minor glitches with a couple of addresses. Timlin's was one of them. We'll address that. But we're working those bugs out. But for the most part, that system works great. And I encourage everybody to go give it a try. And remind everybody, you have to complete the registration process in order to be fully registered. And if that means there's a payment due, you have to make that payment, because otherwise, if you get out of it, it makes it in limbo and your registration isn't 100% done until you complete that process. So it's a good system. It's online, and we are fixing the very, very minor glitches that are in it.
Thank you.
And I can attest that the program works. Steve was in my office after the last school committee meeting in the morning and had to demonstrate to me that it was a pretty decent program that we're using, and the number of registrations sure verify that. Just one thing, Brad, I really want to thank you for your leadership with CPAC. I know you're busy, but your leadership and Lynn's leadership working with this group, I've noticed some great things happening. I don't want to share the individual's name, but I know there's a group of people out there that, and it's not just Littleton, it's a regional group that get together to talk about their children, et cetera. And those are the kinds of things that I really like to see is that extension to beyond Littleton, to get parents together that are working together with their children to make sure that they get what they need to be successful. So thanks again for your leadership.
It's not me at all. The leadership team is fantastic there, and I'm just happy to be along for the ride. But thank you. Matt, I move to adjourn.
I second that.
Okay, that's a roll call vote. So we'll begin with Timlin.
Timlin Rausius, yes.
Jen Gold.
Jen Gold, yes.
Justin McCarthy.
Justin McCarthy, yes.
And Brad Austin.
Brad Austin, yes.
All right, Matt Hunt votes yes as well. Thanks, everyone. We will see you in 2 weeks. I believe it's June 3rd.
Yes.
Is that right? All right.